Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. And of course, as always, we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Nick Frazier is here today. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Jared. How are you?
Outstanding. Although I do have to say, I watched the cartoon broadcast last night on News Channel 5, the one the Predators did. They were very excited about it. Max and Chris Mason, from the sound of it, I think they were pretty good, but the broadcast was good. The actual game itself, I don't know if I'd say that was very good. I'm trying not to be rude here. I'm trying to be honest with the people. But again, they were atrocious last night. And so was, most importantly, UC Saros. And his miserable, and I mean miserable season continues for the Predators. And at this point, it's not even so much about the miserable season, because I'm actually hoping that they lose every game the rest of the year. I heard David Janes in the update that played before we came on say, hey, the Predators have lost 4 in a row. And I'm like, yes. So while I appreciate UC Saros on cartoon night helping the cause for the number 1 pick with the ping pong balls, he stinks. And no matter who they draft, they're stuck with UC Saros. And I can defend Barry Trotz on a lot of things, but I cannot defend him on the UC Saros trade. And yesterday, 7 goals allowed in 2 periods, a minus 4.33 goals save above expected. That means that yesterday, UC Saros was responsible for at least 4 goals in 2 periods. That is atrocious. It's so sad when it comes to UC Saros' season, which has been awful, but really, again, his career. He hasn't done anything remarkable, and I believe, as I believed last year when they had a choice to make, that he was completely replaceable. In fact, last night, speaking of replaceable, they put Justus Annunen in, and Justus Annunen played better. If you were like me and you watched the cartoon broadcast and you were a psychiatrist, you would have seen Nash yesterday. You would have had to write him a prescription for Xanax, because they had a little cartoon that played whenever the other team scored of Nash just falling down. And he fell down 8 times last night. Again, UC Saros allowed minus 4.33 goals above expected. And as terrible as last night's game was, and as terrible as this season has been, the crazy thing is that contract hasn't even kicked in yet. This was the last game I think a lot of people are probably going to watch where they sit down. The Predators, I thought, did a very good job of promoting the News Channel 5 game. The rest of them are going to be on the FanDuel for Cocta Sports Network. And again, what is there to play for? They've been eliminated from the playoffs. They're losing every night, which again is not a bad thing given the draft, but they're losing every night. This is kind of the one that people will remember. And what a terrible performance. And let me say this. I like Barry Trotz. And this time last year when they were winning and he had taken over as GM, and it seemed like the moves he had made, whether it was Gus Nyquist or whether it was a trade for Jason Zucker at the deadline and not giving up too much and the cap space and the draft picks, it looked like that thing was working out. It looked like he was doing a good job. It actually looked like he had made a great hire in Andrew Brunette. So when Barry Trotz makes a mistake in the free agent, I'm fine with that. He's explained it. I'm fine with the explanation. But the way that it's going with Saros, barring a miracle, there's no recovering for Barry Trotz from that contract. I'm not sure that Barry Trotz can survive that one decision that he made. 8 years of that. And you can't even move it, even if you wanted to move it, because the money's too much. Nobody's going to take that on. Goalies don't matter that much. And right now, he sucks. Yaroslav Askarov is in San Jose, and UC Saros isn't young anymore. And I just don't see Saros, even if he isn't this awful going forward, I just don't see him being worth it. And if it doesn't work, I don't know how we can forgive Barry Trotz for that. It was a contract that I begged them not to sign. It was a contract that most of this radio station would not have given to UC Saros. I even asked Derek, who was one of the few that would. I asked Derek, I said, so do you regret being on the UC Saros team last? Oh, no, I don't regret it, but he better play better next year. He better. But when they signed Saros to that ridiculous contract, he hadn't proven anything to deserve that contract. And I kept saying it at the time last summer when we started the station civil war over whether or not to go with Saros or trade him and eventually flip it over to Yaroslav Askarov. And I said, either Saros gets the big contract or Saros gets traded and eventually Askarov becomes the goalie. It was a binary choice. Chris Mason and Willie, they try to make up all this. Well, what if they one day signed Saros to an extension and then eventually turned it over to Askarov? That was never going to happen. Well, what if they go into next year and then flip Saros at the deadline? That was never going to happen. They had a choice to make after the draft. It was either sign Saros or trade Askarov. Or, sign Saros and trade Askarov or trade Saros and go with Askarov. They had a choice. It was binary. They made it. And it came with a lot of risk. And the reality is they chose UC Saros and they rewarded him with this wonderful contract that is standard for an elite goalie, and he has rewarded them in return with this total turd of a season. He leads the NHL in losses. He has a sub-9 save percentage, and according to MoneyPuck.com, he is the third worst goalie in the league as far as goals saved above expected per 60 minutes is concerned, behind only Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and Jeremy Swayman. And Swayman is the Boston version of Saros, and he might get Don Sweeney fired. He's already gotten Jim Montgomery, a very good coach, fired this season. UC Saros has a negative wins above replacement, meaning go take some Scarbini, stick him in net, and he'd have a better season this year than UC Saros. And this is after the Preds got on their hands and knees and gave him the franchise. And at this point, I don't want to be rude, but Barry Trotz, in my opinion, has one option. It was the same thing that Derek said to me today when I said, hey, do you regret being all in on the Saros train last year? And he said, well, he's got to have a better season next year. That's the only option that Barry Trotz has for making that terrible decision, which is to hope that UC Saros plays better. Now, they are going to convince themselves that that will happen. But they kind of have to. Because if they don't convince themselves that that's going to happen, the other option is to bench Saros and just pay him $7.74 million a year for the next 8 years after this year while he sits on the pine. And it'd be one thing if they could bench Saros if they had a young goalie behind him who was one of the top prospects in the game. Instead, they have Justus Annunen. They're going to convince themselves that this was just a bad year and bad defense and bad this and bad that, and Saros will play better next year. He will be worth the contract next year, even though, again, I'm not convinced that UC Saros has ever been worth the contract they gave him. That's their business. That's what they're going to do. And if he doesn't, and this is who he is, they're all going to lose their jobs. Coach is going to lose his job. General manager is going to lose his job. Everyone's going to lose his job. The entire holdover of the Poyle regime, they're all going to be gone. Because, again, You can't have a goalie that you've signed to an 8-year contract who you are giving roughly $8 million a year to. Again, I don't even believe in giving goalies that kind of contract because outside of Connor Hellebuck, I don't think any of them are worth it. But you cannot survive giving that kind of contract to that kind of player when it is first guessed that this may end up being a complete and total disaster, and we haven't even started the contract, and it's a disaster. I can only imagine. I watched the cartoon version last night. I can only imagine what the real version looked like. And while, again, he's not the only player on the team, he's not the only player who's not playing well, he's not the. When you pay a goalie all this money, it's the goalie's job to win some of these games. It's the goalie's job to steal some of these games for you to win. When I hear Barry Trotz say things like, oh, well, usually the sign of bad goaltending is bad defense. Well, then pay defense. Don't pay goalie. That was the whole point I made last year. I don't need to pay a freaking goalie. They don't matter. They're all fickle anyways. Jordan Bennington stinks for 90% of the year, but boy, when it really matters, he's incredible. 90% is probably a stretch. Plus, we're friends with the Benningtons, so I don't want to push that. But Jordan Bennington's had his bad moments, and then when it really matters, he's really good. He's streaky. They're all streaky. That's why you don't commit your team. You don't give your team to that guy. This UC Saros contract may be the goalie version of the Deshaun Watson contract. There's nothing you can do about it. You gave up the future asset in Askarov in order to make it work. And again, if he doesn't play better, there's no other choice. That's where we are with UC Saros. And again, I can defend Barry Trotz on a lot of things, and I do think Barry Trotz is doing a good job. I really do. Well, good job might be a stretch because this season's been an unmitigated disaster. But I think he did a good job last year. And I follow along with some of the decisions. But the one thing I begged them not to do was that goalie contract. And I just don't know how they survive if he doesn't start playing better. And I don't think there's any way that they can get him to play better other than to sit there and hope and pray that he does play better. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Another disastrous Saros performance in the books. And I do want to bring up how we got here because I think we need to have this discussion. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
Werenski passes in front, and the score put in by Kirill Marchenko, held by Johnson. Here's the pass across, and the score. Adam Fantilli. Cole Smith on the half wall left. Back out for Osterley to score. Jordan Osterley scores, and the Predators now have pulled within 8-4.
Hey, they're making it close, Pete. They've pulled within 8-4. I'm just going to tell you guys, last night I was pretty excited. Again, my kid's 3 months old. This is probably more about me than it is him, but he loves cartoons. He loves colors. He loves it when they move on the screen. I was like, oh, he's going to love the cartoon broadcast. We couldn't stay up for it last night. And so I watched it. He could not stay up for it, but I watched it last night, the cartoon broadcast or whatever, and it was just depressing. And again, it's like every time I sit down and watch UC Saros play, I come out of this thinking, oh God, why is this guy the goalie? And again, I begged them not to do it. Last year, during the Vancouver series, I said, this is it for me. Like, this was kind of I knew that the push was coming to shove. I knew there was going to be a decision that was going to have to be made. And I realized in the Vancouver series, he just doesn't win big games. So I was ready to move on. And I was ready to spend that money somewhere else. And I was ready to get the pick or something and eventually turn it over to the kid and deal with it that way. And they kept saying, no, you don't understand, Jared. UC Saros, he's so good. Well, again, he is the third worst goalie in the league, according to goals save above replacement or expected or whatever it is. Wins above replacement, he's the second worst goalie in the league. So him and whoever this Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is in Buffalo, apparently he sucks, and Swayman in Boston, they're awful. But here's the problem. Here's what we have to address. And I see all of your texts in the text line on Saros, and they're pretty much all the same. But here's what we have to address, which is how the Predators got themselves in this mess in the first place. And this is very important for everybody to hear. They convinced themselves that UC Saros was Pekka Rinne 2.0 because they wanted to believe that UC Saros was Pekka Rinne 2.0. UC Saros had done nothing to prove that he was Pekka Rinne 2.0. I remember Willie kept talking about, well, at this age and these stats and at this time and at this, where are the playoff series steals that Pekka Rinne had in 2011? Remember when he stole the Anaheim series? Remember when he single-handedly made it a 6-game series against a stacked Vancouver Canuck team that ended up in Game 7 of the Cup final? I do. Has Saros had some nice runs in his career? Sure. Saros was solid in the Carolina series in 2021, but the facts are the facts. 0 playoff series wins, including that bubble series against that terrible Arizona team during COVID. Saros is short, and he's not getting any taller. Meanwhile, Pekka Rinne stole playoff series and won playoff series, like the Anaheim series in 2011, like the Detroit series in 2012. In 2017, Pekka Rinne stole both the Chicago and Anaheim series that propelled them to the Stanley Cup final. He is a former Vezina Trophy winner. I don't care who's a finalist. Andrew Brunette was a finalist for Coach of the Year in 2 out of the last 3 years, and I think the Predators should fire him. Again, I don't care who's a finalist. Pekka Rinne was a Vezina Trophy winner. They have convinced themselves UC Saros is something that he is not, which is Pekka Rinne 2.0. Saros is 6 inches shorter than Rinne. He has a playoff record of 5-11. He was never Pekka, but they just wanted it to be true. It's like it gave them the old warm and fuzzies of the good old days, telling themselves that UC Saros was Pekka Rinne. It's kind of like the Green Bay Packers. Now, the story, how it will end, we'll see with Jordan Love. I don't know. But the Green Bay Packers went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Again, you never want to be the guy that follows the guy. But Aaron Rodgers was good enough to be the guy who followed the guy. Then they go to Jordan Love. And when they drafted Jordan Love, the whole thing was, hey, we went from Brett to Aaron. Aaron sat behind Brett. Then we went to Aaron. Now Jordan is going to sit behind Aaron, and Jordan's going to be the guy. The Packers gave Jordan Love $55 million a year. They gave him $240 million because Jordan Love played well for 1 month. 1 month. But they look at themselves and say, well, we went from Brett to Aaron, and now we've gone from Aaron to Jordan, and Jordan is the next Aaron. Well, I mean, I don't know if Jordan Love's going to the Hall of Fame. I think I need to see a little bit more. That's the thing with the Predators, is they wanted to believe so badly that they were going from Rene to Saros, and Saros played well enough down the stretch in 2021 and in 2023 that there was kind of this little taste that made them believe something that is just not the case. And this was the biggest fear I had when David Poile announced his retirement. And again, I like David Poile, and David Poile belongs in the team's Hall of Fame. He belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer. I'm not here to crap on David Poile. But when David Poile retired, it was time for David Poile to go. And I wanted them to go out and get an experienced general manager or somebody that had been in the front office that just wasn't a Predator. I wanted somebody with outside blood. The guy I liked was Kyle Dubas, who's now in Pittsburgh. He was in Toronto at the time. Not like Dubas has done anything great in Pittsburgh, but again, that was who I wanted. Somebody who was not connected to the Poile regime. When they said it was going to be Barry Trotz, I said, okay, fine, I can live with that because it's not Poile and it was time for new blood. But this was my biggest fear, from going from David Poile to a David Poile guy. Because a David Poile guy, I feared, would do the things that David Poile did that made him a really good guy, but sometimes held the team back. And loyalty was a problem with David Poile in a bad way. I'd rather be more loyal than disloyal, but at some point, like, it's business. But they just believe things sometimes that you can't shake it out of them. It's like we can watch the same Vancouver series and watch them blow that lead in game 4 that really cost them the series. And you could say, you want to sign up for that for the next 9 years? And they'll say, yes, it's not his fault. It's never his fault. And because of that, and again, I don't think Saros is going to be the worst goalie or one of the 3 worst goalies in the league for the next 8 years, but I certainly don't think he's going to be Pekka Rinne. I certainly don't think he's going to be a game-changing playoff series stealing goalie. And because of that, again, I'm rooting to be wrong. I just don't see them overcoming it. I don't see the Predators not winning a playoff series for the next 8 years and Barry Trotz still being the general manager at the end of that. I just don't see it. Phones, 615-737-1025. We'll hit those at 615-737-1025. Again, I was all excited for cartoon night and then just woof, what a disgrace. And again, I don't want to draw too many conclusions from the cartoons, but man, they look like some Staros is staring right at it and it somehow finds its way into the back of the net. I don't know. Do you want to win tickets to a Preds game? Be listening to Robbie and Rex Show tomorrow morning for Preds Pick to Click. All you have to do is guess a Preds goal scorer, and if they put the puck in the back of the other team's net, you win. Be listening to Robbie and Rex Show tomorrow morning for the cue to call for Preds Pick to Click. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
Bruno, I know that's obviously not what you're looking for tonight. What do you make of this one for your group?
Oh, we knew coming in it was going to be a tough game. Obviously a desperate team, and we hung in there, battled our way back to make it 4-3. We thought we were in a really good position, and, had a great offensive zone shift and turned over a puck, and they scored. That was really deflating for our group after, coming out of back-to-back, getting in late, and clawing our way back in the position. So we got a little sloppy after that, and I thought we were grouped in the third. Had some opportunities, got a goal, opportunities in the power play, but kind of ran out of gas there.
Andrew Brunette, man, he made it sound like they didn't get absolutely used and just torn up last night on cartoon night. By the way, Dante Fabro scored for the other team, so there's that too. I mean, talk about trying to put lipstick on a pig. Oof, this season can't end fast enough. The sad thing is for baseball season with the Braves is the exact same as hockey season. They're 0-6. Hockey season 0-5. Make of it what you will. All right, let's go to your phones as promised. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Texter says, you are a massive hypocrite when it comes to UC Saros. When he's played well of late, you say the games don't matter. When he doesn't, you say he's a bum, and I told you we should have traded him and kept Askarov. Pecorine in his prime could not save this sorry pylon of a defense and a team that mentally checked out weeks ago. That's a moron coaching, and the team may need to move on from Brunette for a more disciplined new direction like Mike Sullivan. Let me say this. I fully endorse that idea. I fully believe, the texter says, that we can win a cup with Saros. Saying the extension was a bad move is way too premature. So this texter says that when I say, oh, hey, Saros stole a game and the season's pretty much over and it doesn't matter, is hypocritical to then watch him give up 7 goals, get pulled, have a goals saved above replacement of minus 4.3, and it's hypocritical for pointing it out. No, it's not. The reason the games don't matter is because he didn't win enough of them when they did. And let me say this again for everybody out there, because this texter's not the only one, although most of the text line says that Saros stinks. Let me say this for most everybody out there. When it comes to, the players around Saros stinks, that's why you pay the goalie. If the goalie has to have good defense in order to be good, then he's just like any other goalie. And personally, and I said this at the time and I say it again, I don't believe in paying goalies because they're too fickle and they don't matter enough in the playoffs. Connor Hellebuck is the best goalie on the planet. And guess what? His team doesn't win in the playoffs. So I've never believed in goalies like that. And so at this point, it's not hypocritical. It's a disaster. And this idea that they can win the cup with Saros based off of what? He lost a bubble series against Arizona. They had a 2-goal lead with under 2 minutes to go in Game 4, a pivotal game in that Vancouver series last year. And he gave up 2 goals and then gave up 1 in overtime. This isn't like Hellebuck in the Four Nations, where they end up going to overtime. They get 3 cracks at it. Bennington makes the saves. And then all of a sudden, Connor McDavid gets an open look in the slot and rips it in the back of the net. I can't blame the goalie for that. Having the 3rd worst goals saved above expected this season for any starting goalie, I can blame the goalie for that. Give me a break. Let's go to Bob in Antioch, who's up next. Go ahead and punch him in there, Nick. Bob, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, guys. I've talked to you about this before. I think part, not all, but part of Saros' problem is confidence. I think he's totally lost his confidence, kind of like Pekka did a few times during his career. And also, I think Brunette, who I like, he's had a deer in the headlights look too. I as much as I hate to say it, I think that they should replace him because he seems like he's completely bewildered and at a loss of what to do. I'd like your comment on that.
Yeah, I talked to a hockey guy when the Leafs were in town because, Toronto, they bring the people out. I talked to a hockey guy and I said, to a hockey guy I trust. And I said, do they need to fire Andrew Brunette? And the hockey guy I trust said, got to do something because it obviously isn't working. So that's how this league works. So I believe they need to fire Andrew Brunette at the end of the season. And I agree with you about the deer in the headlights. I mean, they showed Brunette on the bench. I mean, even that cut that we played coming back from break was basically like Brunette saying, well, tried everything and it ain't working. And at some point, you got to move on. I was talking to somebody last week about firing Brunette, and I said, this was off the air, and I said, look, this isn't your typical Jared Stillman. He's got to go. They got to fire him. It isn't your typical that, because I do think Brunette is a good coach. But at the same time, you can't be this bad. You got to change something for next year. You have to give us some hope for next season. And we're not getting a new goalie, are we? So what's the hope you're giving the fans? You're not going to get a new goalie. Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady Shea, Forsberg, O'Reilly, Yossi, they'll all be on the team next year. What's the hope? And for me, it's the ping pong ball, which has to go your way so that you can get one of these two forwards. Robbie Stanley told me yesterday that apparently the kid out of BC might go back to BC. I'm like, oh God, no. There's got to be some hope. And to me, you got to change something. And the thing that's easiest to change, you can't move the goalie. The thing that's easiest to change is the coach. So it's not like Jared Stillman yelling and screaming saying that Brunette's got to go, but it is the reality of this season is completely unacceptable. And somebody's got to pay the price for it, because there has to be some change going into next year, not just to give the fans hope, but also to give the roster a kick in the ass. Mike from Pennsylvania says, Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette both need to be fired. Trotz spent money this offseason, and it's gotten worse. Clean house. So here's what I'll say to the Trotz front. I'm convinced that long-term, I don't know how he survives with the Saros contract. Because the one thing I will say when it comes to Saros is I just don't think they're going to win any playoff series with him. They haven't won a playoff series to this point, and there is nothing that gives me any hope or any idea that they might win a playoff series with him in the future, other than, well, gee, golly, I hope it could happen. So long-term, I'm not high on Barry Trotz, but they did win last year. I do see what he says when he talks about giving the veteran players, trying to have a team that was competitive this year while we wait for Matthew Wood, while we wait for Tanner Molendyke, while we wait for, Surin and Stiga and the guys they've drafted. Edstrom, who they traded for. But I don't know if you heard my interview with him yesterday. I mean, I'm kind of like, all right, so when are we going to start seeing Kimmel up here? And when are we going to start seeing Molendyke up here? And when are we going to start seeing these guys? I got no interest in watching Ozzy Weisblatt and Adam Wilsby next year. When are we going to see Tanner Molendyke? When are we going to see Joakim Kimmel? When are we going to see all these guys that are Reed Schaefer? When are we going to see those guys? And if those guys don't work out, then I think even Trotz would tell you, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he's honest enough to say, yep, well, that is what it is. I would think. One texter goes, why do homers give Trotz a pass? He hired the coach, spent $100 million for the second oldest team in the league, and they're not any good. I don't know if you've listened to the last 30 minutes, but I don't feel like we've given him a pass. Talked about how he probably is not going to survive the goalie deal. And that's where I have to put some of this on Saros. Again, Trotz tattooed Saros on his body when he signed him to that contract. But they started off 0-5 this year. And if they didn't start off 0-5, I think that they'd have a shot. I really believe the 0-5 start doomed them. And then they started gripping the sticks too tight and all this kind of stuff. Where was Saros to steal one of these games to keep you from being 0-5? That's what I wonder. And I just don't have the answer to that. One text says, I have a feeling we're going to regret letting Askarov go. San Jose is building something special out there with Celebrini. And if they win a cup in the next 5 years, oh my goodness. I will take the under. I do not think that San Jose is winning the cup anytime soon. But then again, that's just me. 615-737-1025 is the phone. Oh, I got to read this one text. One texter says, it would be great if we could get Mitch Korn to come on and give a genuine, informed opinion regarding goalies. He's an amazing goalie coach, and he's probably one of the best goalie coaches ever in the game. He's right here in Nashville. Do you want a good source for opinions on goalies? Have Mitch Korn on. Yeah, we're going to bring on Mitch Korn, the goalie coach who had been with Barry Trotz for 85 gazillion years, who now works for the Predators. We're going to ask Mitch Korn. Mitch Korn, does Saros suck? What do you think he's going to say? What do you think he's going to say? That's why I don't mind, I like having Barry on the show, and we ask Barry what's what. But this is why I don't mind not having players on the show, because they don't ever say anything interesting anyways. Speaking of players, former player Chris Sanders joins us next. We got some rumors as far as the Titans are concerned. We'll do that with Chris, and we'll do that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That 615-737-1025. It is time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce that we will be back at the Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders.
Why are you holding that pick so close to the vest? Like, the jig is up. You're picking number 1 overall.
Well, I think you want to go through the entire process. Like I said from the beginning, that I wanted to go through the entire thing, go through the quarterbacks and everybody that's on the board, go through the workouts, the combines, the private workouts that we have set up. I think that's the right thing to do, is to do your due diligence and go through the whole process before you actually come to that decision.
Are you pretty sure you know who you're taking?
You know, I think we're getting closer to that decision right now. We have a few more boxes to check here over the next couple of weeks, but we're getting close.
That was Mike Borgonzi on with Kay Adams at the owners' meetings. We're getting there. Give us a break. We're getting there. Former Titans receiver Chris Sanders joins us now on the program. 22 days away. We will be live out at Twin Peaks for our annual draft night program, Chris.
Oh my God. Dude, I just want to see your face. I want to see your face if they trade down and they get somebody you have no idea that they were going to draft. That's a highlight of the whole thing, is watching your expression. I can't wait.
So I'm in favor of that, by the way, that they trade down and not take the quarterback. But it seems like everyone thinks they're going to take the quarterback, but they keep saying they haven't decided if they're going to take the quarterback. So what do you make of it?
I think they're going to take the quarterback, because if you look at the Tennessee Titans roster, who they have on the roster right now, you got Brandon Allen from San Francisco, you got Will Levis, you got Tim Boyle. The only guy that has a little productivity is Brandon Allen when he played for the Bengals, and when he had 925 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. But you have to have a guy.
Come on, Chris.
I'm just saying.
He threw for 900 yards. Wow.
I know.
It's like 2 games for a good quarterback.
That's the point that I'm making. That's why the reason why I said those stats is because if you don't get a quarterback in here to make some plays, to be the face of your franchise, you got Brandon Allen that started that has 925 yards. That's the point I was making. So, even though he's like, well, I don't know and I'm not sure, watch the body language of those guys when they were talking to Cam Ward at the Pro Day. I think, and this is my opinion, it's not set in stone, with the guys on this Tennessee Titans roster, I think they're definitely going with Cameron Ward.
Can I tell you what I think? What? I think they want to trade the pick. And I don't think that anybody really wants to trade it with him. And that concerns me.
But who would trade for him? Who would really want to try to jump that high? Yeah,
you want me to take a franchise quarterback who you're telling me, well, nobody's going to jump up in order to get him, so he must not be that good.
I mean, he has to do something if everybody's considering him the number 1 pick. I mean, there's something that he's doing right, to where you have a lot of draft gurus that are saying he's the number 1 quarterback in this draft. So even though, everybody said, oh, he's not this, he's not – that's great. I understand that. But he's doing something good for everybody to consider him to not be the number 5 pick, but the number 1 pick in the draft. So it's going to be interesting on what the Tennessee Titans do.
So how much do we make of this number 1 quarterback thing? Because I would love to see the grades that these guys have as far as these other passers. I went back, NFL.com has these profiles on these prospects, and they give them a grade. Cam Ward is a 6.39. He is a lower level prospect than every single quarterback that came out in the first round last year, according to this NFL.com. He's a lower level prospect than Stroud and Richardson and Bryce Young. He's, I think, equal to Bo Nix, and I believe like maybe a little bit ahead of Shedeur Sanders, who's a 6.3.
Right.
I know that they need a quarterback, and I know that Cam Ward is considered the best quarterback in this class, but does that really matter once you draft him? He was the best quarterback in a bad class. I mean, Tony Banks was the best quarterback in a bad class. Doesn't help you on Sunday when you have to play Josh Allen.
I agree 100%, but at the end of the day, is it a good fit for your team? I mean, that's what it boils down to. I mean, everybody may come up with a lot of analytics, so he's like Bo Nix or Bo, whatever. They can say all these things, but if you think he's a good player for your team, he fits your scheme, he fits the offense you want to run, he fits what you want, then I think the Tennessee Titans should definitely take him if he's a good fit. I understand what you're saying. Everybody's saying this and everybody's saying that, and, he can do this, he can do that. But at the end of the day, if I'm a head coach, I'm a general manager, I'm the president of the team, if he is a good fit for my organization, then you have to take him. Why? Because your quarterback play has been awful the last couple of years.
So do you think he's a good fit for the team And do you think he's a franchise quarterback?
I mean, that's just hard to say. I'm not going to say he's a franchise quarterback yet, but I think that you better get somebody in here that could potentially make some plays. I mean, I know that sounds kind of cliche-ish, but at the end of the day, if you just go with Brandon Allen and you go with Will Levis, you go with Tim Boyle, no disrespect to those guys, but you're not going to win a lot of ball games. Then you got to come in here with the hopes of him coming in here playing, the hopes of him, coming in here making some plays. So at the end of the day, what's the best fit for your team? And I think Cam Ward is the best fit for this Titans team.
Okay, if you drafted Cam Ward and you realize that Cam Ward, like the gurus are saying, is not an elite level prospect, so you have him for a year and you think that he's a little bit better version of Tyrod Taylor, would you stop yourself from taking a quarterback next year because you took Ward this year?
No,
or would you be willing to take a quarterback next year if you're picking third and there's a better quarterback out there?
But see, here's the problem, though. We don't give enough time for these kids to develop. I mean, everybody goes with the C.J. Strouds and the Daniels that come in that just automatically light the NFL up on fire. But at the end of the day, you got to get a guy in here and give him a chance to develop. And I know everybody wants to, be like the microwave and make everything quick. But sometimes you got to have patience with a quarterback and pull out the greatness. And that goes back to the coaching staff. If I get a guy like Cameron Ward and everybody's saying these are the things he needs to work on, I'm going to sit him down and make sure that he develops into everything I want him to be. So at the end of the day, it all depends on what the team wants.
Trevor Matage was on the show yesterday. Trevor made a comment that the Titans kind of screwed up Will Levis. Do you believe that there is hope for Will Levis as a player, or are you done with him?
I do. I mean, the reason why I do is because this guy has a no-quit attitude. And when you have a kid that doesn't quit, he's still going to try to do everything in his power to try to do some things. Yes, I know his play has been awful. Yes, I know he's changed offensive coordinators and all these things. But I still think that this cat has some fight in him because there's a lot of people. I say this all the time. You got two choices to get better or get better. And just watching his body language, just watching the things he says, he's not making excuses. He's trying to say, you know what, I need to get better in all facets of the game. So, yeah, I wouldn't give up on him. I'm just not that type of guy that just give up on kids. But now if you just can't do it, I'm going to sit you down and say, hey, dog, it's over. But he's still got some talent to try to do some things in the NFL.
Would you bet your career on Cam Ward being a franchise quarterback? Yes or no?
Oh, my God. I mean, but that's no. And the reason why I would say no is because you just don't know. I mean, whoever thought that Tom Brady was going to be a franchise quarterback and be a Hall of Famer, you just don't know. I mean, it all depends on how he develops. It all depends on how he handles the pressure of the game. And that's just a hard question to answer. I can't answer that, but at the end of the day, I still don't know.
Chris Sanders, as always, on our program. He'll be with us for the draft. Chris, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, brother. You take care.
Yep.
Peace
So
out.
Chris Sanders tells me I have to draft Cam Ward #1, but would bet on him not being a franchise quarterback. Isn't that a little crazy? So apparently, Diana Rossini, who has not been reporting on the Titans as much as she used to when Mike Vrabel was the coach, apparently Diana Rossini has a nugget on the Titans. And I want to get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. And so Diana Rossini, we have not heard, Nick Frazier, from Diana Rossini in a while, eh?
It's been a while.
I mean, remember when Vrabel was the coach, we had something new from Diana every other week.
Almost 2 times a week.
I mean, it's crazy. And so we have not heard much from Diana Rossini, but apparently we have a little nugget from Diana Rossini. Again, all the reporters are down at the owners' meetings. All of the owners are down at the owners' meetings. All of the general managers, the presidents, the coaches, everybody's down there. It's like this massive convention. And so Diana Rossini was on her podcast, Scoop City, and was talking with former quarterback Chase Daniel and had this little nugget about the Titans and Cam Ward and the number 1 pick.
What would it take? What would it take, Diana, for them to move off?
I think it's good business for them to keep this open. I think that's the point.
What would it take for them to move off the pick?
I don't know. They won't answer that. They won't tell you.
It would have to be a ton.
Correct. I mean, this is an organization that is trying to completely revamp and rebuild. They are tearing it down. They did not have a good free agency last year. They have so many questions that need answers and a lot of positions to fill. So I understand the argument from some in the building that I know would like to trade out because they want to build. But they've lived in a quarterback.
No, go ahead.
They've lived in this quarterback situation where they don't have a lot of answers for a while. But I'd put it like this. I'm not sure if there's conviction yet. And that was my sense. I'm not feeling this conviction from Tennessee just yet. It seems, I mean, look, we saw Brian Callahan at the workout and it's lights out. Like he was so happy and loved what he loved what he saw. I'm just not feeling that yet. It's going to change. I'm just saying for right now.
Oh, okay. The big part in there was she said, hey, look, there are some in the building that want to trade back and want more picks. Well, I need to know who the people in the building are before I get worked up one way or another about people in the building want to trade that pick. I need to know, who are these people in the building? Are they Teflon Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, people whose opinions matter? Or is it, Kevin Turks? Who is it in the building that wants to trade the pick? That matters. A couple of years ago, the Houston Texans took C.J. Stroud number 2 overall. Again, that whole draft day kind of stunner, which Diana was absolutely front and center on with the Titans. And the Texans took C.J. Stroud number 2. And the next morning, Dan Graziano said on TV, he said, there are people in the Texan building who wanted Will Levis. And I said, oh, wow, that's a big deal. And we talked about that. I mean, there are people in the Texans building that wanted Will Levis. Through the grapevine, some way, somehow, I found out who that person in the building was with the Texans that wanted Will Levis. And I was like, oh, whatever. I mean, so that's kind of how I feel when I hear Diana say there are people in the building that think that they would be better off trading that, even though that's what I want to do. It's like, is the person you're talking about in the building, does their opinion matter? Because if it's not Teflon Chad and it's not Mike Borgonzi, then I don't think it matters. I think those are the only 2 opinions that count. Amy obviously counts because she owns the team, but I think that's it. But I will tell you one thing that I don't buy, which again is what the Titans have told everyone. Jordan Raynon, who covers the Giants for ESPN.com, said that the sense he's hearing is that the Titans haven't made up their mind yet. Diana Rossini saying, they want to go through the process. Mike Borgonzi, any interview they do, they talk about, well, we got to go through the process. We got to do the whole thing. I don't buy that. The process is over. It's so over that Brinker and Brian Callahan are not going to the Shedeur Sanders Pro Day. They know what they want. What they want, I don't know. But at this point, when it comes to Ward and if they believe in him and if they think he's a franchise quarterback and if they're willing to stick their careers on Cam Ward. They know. Period. It's over. They know. If you believe in him, you think he's a franchise quarterback, you take him. If you don't think he's a franchise quarterback and you don't believe in him and you don't want to risk your career on him, you don't take him. Selling tickets at the new stadium doesn't matter. Because again, if you don't win, you're not going to sell enough tickets. Number two, if you don't believe in him and you draft him number 1 overall, and he ends up becoming, again, Tyrod Taylor, and that's who he is, you're fired. Well, it was a bad quarterback draft, Jared. What did they have? Doesn't matter. Again, number 1 is number 1, and that's how it'll be remembered. And finally, and I understand this, and in certain elements, I can see where it would matter. But again, if I'm risking my career, this doesn't matter. Well, we have to give the fans something to be excited about, Jared. So you're going to draft a quarterback you don't believe in, number 1 overall? Again, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Either you believe in him or you don't. And all of this bull crap about, well, we have to go through the whole process. It's ridiculous. The process, it's over. They call them touch points. You'll hear all the kind of the new age personnel guys and new age coaches talk about touch points. And what they mean is, well, we talked to Shedeur Sanders at the East-West Shrine. That's a touch point. We had Cam Ward in for a top 30 visit. That's a touch point. All of the Cam Ward recognizance is over. The combine, over. The top 30 visit, over. The pro day, over. The private workout, over. They know if they think Cam Ward is a potential franchise quarterback or not. They know. And them saying, well, we want to go through the process, to me, is just gobbledygook. Personally, I don't believe Cam Ward is going to be a franchise quarterback. So I wouldn't take him. People get mad every time I bring this up, but like now Chris Sanders is on the show and I'm like, should they take him? And Chris Sanders is like, well, I mean, who's going to play quarterback? Got to take him. Well, I wouldn't be in this mess because I would have signed Sam Darnold and the pick would be for sale and I'd have the greatest leverage in the world to trade this pick out of number 1 because I tell the Giants, I tell the Browns, I tell whoever, okay, if you don't meet my asking price for Cam Ward, I take Travis Hunter. Now I've got Sam Darnold and Travis Hunter. But that's just me. But again, back to what Diana said about how some people in the building want to trade the pick. Well, when you invite 4 general managers into the room, they're not all going to have the same opinion. And when you pretend like you care about everybody's opinion like the Titans do, not everybody's going to have the same opinion. But I have no idea if the people Diana is talking to, and I would assume the answer is no. I don't know if the people that Diana Rossini is talking to have the juice for it to matter if they want to trade the pick. Again, I want them to trade the pick, but I don't think I have the juice to get them to trade the pick. By the way, I was talking to an ESPN reporter. Oh, this is going to piss some people off. So I was talking to an ESPN reporter today, and I was asking what they had heard down there at the owners' meetings, just, the gossip. And they said, well, Brian Callahan. And I was like, look, I think the Titans listen to my opinion about the quarterback more than Brian Callahan. Not that they listen to my opinion and say, oh, Jared doesn't want Cam Ward, so let's not take him, but more so that they actually listen and hear what I say. Whereas with Callahan, when he starts talking, I think they all tune out. I don't think his opinion could matter less in this scenario. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Again, enough with the needing to go through the process. I get it. You're waiting on the Shedeur Pro Day and the private workout, but more importantly, you're waiting on the Giants or the Browns to get desperate. Got it. But enough with we're going through the Cam. Either you think he's a franchise guy or you don't. The end. Some people seem to think the Titans are overplaying their hand. I can't go that far, even though I think they've already made mistakes along the way. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, we'll get to that next. This week's Nashville's Best Deal comes from Bad Axe Throwing Nashville, downtown's largest axe throwing venue and your go-to spot for food, fun, and vibes. Enjoy panoramic views of the city, a killer soundtrack, craft cocktails from the full bar, and a Northwoods-inspired menu with a Southern twist. This week, score half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals and grab yours today.
Last one for me. When I was in the league, we had the first pick in the draft, so I know what life was like.
Yeah.
Back then, for the listeners, we would interview the top 3 guys because signability was an issue. The year we had the first pick, there wasn't a quarterback in the draft for the first round. We couldn't move out if we wanted to.
Sure, I think that's always on the table. I mean, the one thing I appreciate about Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker is that the process is very disciplined, and we're doing our due diligence on all the players. We're working through the entire process, and we'll take those calls. You know, you have to do right by the process of it all, and I think you have to entertain them if they come, and if it's the right offer, you have to think about it. I would say that if you felt like there was a quarterback that was a franchise-capable player, there is no price on those guys if they pan out the way you want them. So whatever offer might come in, if we feel strongly about a quarterback, then you might be less inclined to move off it because though you feel like that player is going to be way better than whatever price you're offered.
That was Mike Vrabel on Sirius XM NFL Radio, and I love Pat Kerwin at the beginning of that, saying, hey, when I had the number 1 pick and we were picking, and that was with the Jets in 96, he goes, when we had the number 1 pick, like, there was no quarterback. We tried to trade the pick, and nobody wanted to pick up the phone. Again, we have this crazy belief that just because a quarterback is a quarterback will go at the top of the draft no matter what. And we know that's not true because 3 years ago, there was not a good quarterback in that 2022 class, and the first quarterback went at 20 off the board. So, again, when it comes to these guys, they're going to take this guy. Oh, they're going to take that. Again, there is at least some precedent of maybe people don't want this guy. So I have a fear of something that Titan fans have brought up. And my fear is that the Titans are overplaying their hand as far as the first pick is concerned and as far as the Browns and Giants are concerned. But I can't necessarily say that they've overplayed their hand because we just don't know yet. Again, when Mike Borgonzi was hired, the same players that are on the board now were on the board then. Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty, Travis Hunter, they're the same players. And that day at the Titan facility, it was obvious that the Titans wanted to trade the pick. Again, everybody made a big deal about those generational talent comments. I mean, that was nothing in passing other than to basically say, if there's a generational talent there, we're not going to pass on it, i.e., if this draft had Lawrence Taylor in it. Well, guess what? This draft doesn't have Lawrence Taylor in it. So that was the point that they were making. But again, my takeaway, and I would love to know what TD or Corey Curtis or Paul or somebody who was there, my takeaway that day was they want to trade the pick. They want picks, picks, picks. The players themselves have not changed. I mean, Chad Brinker was bragging to Jim Wyatt this week that he saw Cam Ward at the Georgia Tech game. So he already had an opinion of Cam Ward at the time. So if they were thinking pick, 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 and they were thinking, hey, we're going to get the best possible offer out of the Giants or the Browns, and there's no offer that's coming from the Giants or the Browns, and now they have to take a quarterback with the number 1 pick that they don't really want to pick, then I would say that that's overplaying your hand. But I'm not going to accuse them of that simply because we don't know how this is going to shake up. If in the last second, the Giants pucker their butt cheeks up and say, fine, let's do it. Bite the bullet, go get Cam Ward. Which again, I said, if I were the Giants, I said this yesterday, if I were the Giants, not to farm their land, not that I care about what happens in New York, but if I were the Giants, I would trade next year's number 1 pick to move up to number 1 to draft Cam Ward because they don't have a choice. In order to keep their jobs, they need to show progress and show progress at quarterback. That's it. There's only one guy out there. It's Ward. Bite the bullet, do it. So if at the end of the day, the Giants call up 2 days before the draft and offer that, then the Titans didn't overplay their hand. Then the Titans did exactly what they were supposed to do. If the Titans end up taking a quarterback that they don't want to take because they held out for the best possible trade return, didn't get it, and didn't sign Daniel Jones, whomever, as a bridge quarterback, then they overplayed their hand. But I don't know that yet because we haven't gone through it. We haven't seen. Adam Schefter is saying today that the Browns and the Giants are not interested in taking a quarterback at 2 or 3. They've already said it. Albert Breer had a report on NBC Sports Boston, but you know Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback. We had Breer on the show at the Super Bowl. I love Breer. Breer said today that everything he's hearing at the owners' meetings are the Patriots are not going to be able to get their hands on Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter because the Giants might go in a different direction. So it sounds like the Browns and the Giants don't want a quarterback. Well, that's today. But again, we get close to the draft. What if the Giants, like they did last year when they called on draft night, they called the Patriots to move up? What if that happens? Then I can't say they overplayed their hand. So I'm not going to accuse the Titans of doing something that, again, I fear they've done. And I will say this when it comes to the Titans, and I will say this when it comes to that quarterback, I do not think that they, talking about Brinker and Borgonzi, I do not think that they view Cam Ward as a franchise quarterback. Because if they viewed Cam Ward as a franchise quarterback, they wouldn't be interested in trading the pick. They would be taking Cam Ward, who, again, they view as a franchise quarterback. Chris Sanders last hour was on the show saying they have to take Cam Ward. And then I asked him, do you think he's a franchise quarterback? He said, no, I'm not doing that. They're smart. They're not doing that either. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Jared in Spring Hill has been waiting patiently and is up next. Jared, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If whenever the Titans, again, I know this is all conjecture, and if the Titans really don't know, wouldn't it be smart optics-wise, and this is leading into my question for you, Stillman, wouldn't it be smart optics-wise to send everybody to Cam Ward's pro day, to send everybody to Shedeur Sanders' pro day, to send them maybe even to Jackson Darts if you're really trying to throw them off your scent, to tell them you don't know, send everybody there. That way it kind of looks like they're going to come to a Titans consensus. And if that, with that being the case, you're talking about overplaying their hand. I'm also going to say mismanagement. How do you feel, or do you know, or how can you project, or I know this is not ever going to be able to come out black and white question here, but does the Titans' reputation, how do you think the Titans' reputation plays into this? Because it's not like their management reputation, their decision makers. Because it's not like this is like Red Auerbach or any a great GM that's going to fleece somebody. So does that play into it, and how much does it play into it as well, the reputation of the Titans brass? Thank you, and tighten up.
Thank you. So when it comes to the first thing about, trying to throw people off your scent and trying to this and trying to do that and everything else, that doesn't matter. That does not matter. You have the pick. It's not about what you want. It's about what they want. Do the Browns want Cam Ward? Do the Giants want Cam Ward? Not do the Titans want Cam Ward? So I think that would be the important thing. Though I do think it's worth noting to make sure that everybody knows, hey, if you don't trade up, you don't get him. So I could see some of that. The second part about the Titans' reputation, here's where I think it might matter a little bit, but not their reputation as much as just people often find things to allow them to believe what they want to believe. So, for instance, NFL.com does grades on all these prospects, and they go back. And I think it's out of 8, but nobody gets an 8. So, Caleb Williams was a 7.1, which is very, very high. Jaden Daniels, I think, was a 7. Cam Ward is a 6.39, which is the same as Bo Nix last year, 6.39. For kicks, I looked it up. I said, what did Mahomes get? Mahomes got a 6.30, which is the same grade Shedeur Sanders has. Well, if you want to believe that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the bee's knees when it comes to an NFL prospect, you would call this show and say, but Jared, they said Mahomes was a 6'3", and look at that. And Shedeur is a 6'3". Look at that. But that really doesn't have anything to do with whether or not Shedeur Sanders is going to make it. What they're telling you is that Shedeur Sanders is not as good of a prospect as any of the other quarterbacks that have gone over the last couple of years as far as where they sat entering the draft. That's what it says, according to the NFL.com scouting service. So when the Titans, you ask about the brass and their reputation, if the Titans like Cam Ward, then I could see a team like the Giants saying to themselves, yeah, we kind of see it too, and they see it, so it confirms our belief. That I could see. But again, it's not like it's Belichick we're talking about. Well, Belichick thinks it, so it's not exactly the same. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That is 615-737-1025. Brian Callahan said something yesterday. And then we'll get to your phones, I promise. Brian Callahan said something yesterday that made me want to throw up. Made me want to throw up. You know what? In fact, Frazier, I'm going to let the fans pick the next segment. We can either get to the thing Brian Callahan said that made me want to throw up, or we can get to the thing that Mike Vrabel said that is not true, but he thinks it's true. You guys pick one or the other. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I mean, here's what I love about this. This is why I want John Robinson, who I actually think is probably better at his job, the old general manager with Vrabel. Yeah. I think he's probably a better GM than Vrabel is a coach. But what I I want him to get a GM job, and I'm glad Vrabel has this job with a terrible team right now, because I want to see the scoreboard. Like, somebody's going to be right about this. Somebody's going to be wrong. We have no idea now, but at some point, we will know who was right and who was wrong. And if Vrabel goes and wins a Super Bowl with the Patriots, I'll say I was wrong, and Vrabel can smack me on the tush if it makes him feel better. I don't know. That was me at the Super Bowl on the Felger and Maz program in Boston. That is the best program in the country as far as all the rankings and everything else are concerned. It's one of the highest rated local shows across the country, if not the highest rated local sports talk radio show in America. And that was me again in Boston talking about the great Mike Vrabel. Well, the text line has voted overwhelmingly, Nick Frazier. They want to hear about the great Mike Vrabel.
They don't want to hear about your projectile vomiting?
Well, they'll hear about that at some point. Callahan said something that we'll get to, but they want to hear about the great Mike Vrabel. In fact, it was almost unanimous. Do the Vrabel topic. So Vrabel yesterday went on the Felger and Maz radio program, which I'm actually shocked by, because you think that I'm bad. That show is bad. And Vrabel was asked about being a member of the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Again, all the Bill Belichick guys, they haven't worked out, right? Like, we can all agree, whether it's Charlie Weiss or Josh McDaniels or Romeo Crennel or Matt Patricia or Joe Judge or whomever, they've all failed. The Patriot way, the Bill way, it doesn't work. Vrabel has had a modicum of success. Although Bill O'Brien's had a little bit of success too, and I'd argue that Bill O'Brien and Vrabel's success are similar. But again, the great Mike Vrabel is viewed as an incredible coach, and he's the one guy that maybe makes it off the Belichick vine. But he never actually coached for Belichick. So Mike Felger asks Vrabel about it, and I died at Vrabel's response.
Give me a talk radio topic for 1 second, Mike. Will you indulge me?
What's that?
Okay, so we talk a lot about coaching trees and Belichick's coaching tree, and Belichick's coaching tree has fallen on its face. No one's, Mangini, McDaniels, Patricia, Charlie Weiss, on down the line, Joe Judge, everyone's failing. And then people who wanted to defend Belichick's coaching tree would say, well, what about Vrabel? And I would always say, I don't know if I put Mike Vrabel in Bill Belichick's coaching tree.
When you see me coach or you see me interact, do you feel like I'm from that lineage?
No.
Me neither.
So you don't consider yourself part of Belichick's coaching tree?
I never worked for Bill Belichick as a coach. There was a lot of things that I learned from him as a player that I've used. But just like with Urban Meyer or just like with anybody else that I've worked for, I've tried to take those things but do it in my own personality, my own style.
Okay. You could tell Vrabel he shut that down right away when he was like, hey, does anything about me make you think about Belichick? And Felger, damn it, the answer is yes. You just don't know yet, Mike. Talking about Mike Felger. You just don't know yet because you haven't been around Vrabel as much as we've been around Vrabel. But here's what I love about the Belichick-Vrabel saga. And that is all those little minions of Belichick's that went off and got jobs. They wanted to be Bill. They wanted to do things the Bill way, and they wanted to be Bill Jr., but none of them could do it for whatever reason, whether it was Patricia, whether it was Judge, whatever. They wanted to come in, be Johnny Hardass, and just be Belichick, be mean, be coarse, cut off their sleeves, everything. And it never worked. This is the one guy who can kind of do it. He is Bill Belichick's coaching son. He will never admit it. He doesn't even believe it. He won't admit it to himself. He hates Bill. He went to Belichick and he asked, hey, can I get a contract that would allow me to retire a New England Patriot? And the next week, Belichick sent him to the Chiefs. He hates Bill. If you remember, They played the Patriots here in 2018. And they ran a reverse pass for Brady, and it was incomplete, or Brady tripped over his feet or whatever. And the next time down, they ran the same reverse pass for Mariota. And Vrabel got up there and said, "We ran it better." Ha, 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 ha. Remember when Vrabel used the Belichick loophole against Belichick in the playoffs? He loved every second of that. And the reason why is because he hates Bill. Hates him. Hated him when he was a player. Again, respects him. Everybody has respect for Belichick. But Mike Vrabel is as close to Bill Belichick and all these teams and owners for years. When they were getting beaten by the New England Patriots, they wanted a little bit of that secret sauce. They wanted just a teeny little taste to try to be just like the Patriots, to bring in that Patriot way. And the only one who could do it at all was Vrabel. And here's why. Because Mike Vrabel has the built-in respect of being a former successful player, that every single one of these players that he's coaching, when he does things the authoritarian Belichick way, cannot look at him and say, "Who the hell are you?" Big fat Matt Patricia gets up there and starts lecturing people because he thinks he's Bill Belichick. It's like, "Who the hell are you, Tubby, with your pencil behind your ear?" Can't say that to Mike Vrabel. But as far as Mike Vrabel, what makes Mike Vrabel a good coach? And I think, again, I thought it was time for Vrabel to go, but I think we can all agree Vrabel was a good coach. Vrabel is a good coach. What makes Vrabel a good coach? Vrabel is an incredibly hard worker. He is very tough. He holds people accountable, just like Belichick. He is diligent when it comes to the rule book and it comes to checking in on every little corner. There's nobody that does it better than Mike Vrabel. That's what Bill used to do. When it comes to putting in a good defense against a big-time quarterback, nobody does it the way Mike Vrabel does. Mahomes hates playing Vrabel. Said it in his documentary. Just like Bill and Peyton Manning. He is Bill Belichick 2.0, except he's got a little bit of a personality. But that's it. And again, if Vrabel heard this, he'd want to vomit because he hates Bill for the way Bill hated him. But what's the downfall when it comes to Belichick? Think about it. It always had to be about me. Belichick was too arrogant. At the end, Brady wanted the rules bent a little bit for Brady. Belichick couldn't do it. Why? Because to Bill, it was Bill's system. It was Bill's team. It was Bill's decision. That's why they were winning, not because of Tom. Tom was a byproduct of Bill, according to Bill. When it came to Mac Jones, after Bill's offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, left and went to the Raiders, he took Matt Patricia and made him the offensive coordinator. It makes no sense that he would do that. Why? Because Bill knew that Bill could do it right the Bill way, just like Vrabel. Todd Downing sucked that first year as offensive coordinator, but that's Vrabel's guy, so he stays. Because Vrabel knows better than you do, according to Vrabel. The same way that Bill knew better than you did, according to Bill. I don't think Belichick in this era, without Charlie Weiss, without the luck of having Tom Brady sit on the bench behind Drew Bledsoe, and without the luck of it being Tom freaking Brady, one of the greatest competitors in the history of American sports, I don't think Bill Belichick can develop a quarterback. And we're going to see with Drake May, but I don't think Mike Vrabel can either. Why? Because he's a defensive guy. Vrabel's a know-it-all, but he doesn't know it all, just like Bill. He is Bill. That's why it's worked to the extent that it worked here in Tennessee. And the other thing about these guys, again, not Patricia, not those goobers, But the real true ball coaches that come from this lineage, Parcells, Belichick, Vrabel, the thing about those guys is they never work well with other people. Remember the Bill Parcells press conference about they want you to make the dinner, but they won't let you buy the groceries. That was about general manager Bobby Greer. When Bill Belichick got to New England, Bobby Greer was still the general manager, and then Belichick ran him out of town. We know all about Robinson and Carthon and Vrabel and Cowden, and we know all we need to know about that. Just like Bill. He's arrogant like Bill. He's a hard worker like Bill. He lives, breathes, eats, sleeps football just like Bill. He is the closest thing there ever was to Bill Belichick. He's Bill Jr. He's more like Bill as a coach than Bill's sons who are coaching. But he could never, ever, ever admit it to himself because he hates Bill Belichick so much. And that's why I love it. I love it. Again, I like Vrabel. I'm sure Vrabel doesn't like me. That's his business, not mine. I like Vrabel. And I am convinced that, again, if you hooked Mike Vrabel up to a lie detector and you said, are you anything like Bill Belichick? Vrabel would say the F word and then would say no. And then the lie detector would go ding, 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 as in he's telling the truth. But again, just watching it, he's Bill. The same things that make him a good coach are the same things that make Bill a good coach. The same things. The arrogance, the obnoxiousness, the same things, the cold-heartedness, firing Haas, the equipment guy. The same things that led to Belichick's downfall are the same problems Mike Vrabel has. And I'm telling you, this Elliott Wolf thing, it ain't going to work in New England. Mike, I want you to work with Elliott Wolf, and I want you to work together. Oh, he'll promise it today. Just wait. Just wait until we start seeing reports from Paul Kaharski. Remember when it was Greg Bedard and Ben Volen and all the New England beat writers that were bitching about Rand Carthon? Just wait until it's paulkaharski.com has a story about how Elliott Wolf stinks, because that's coming. So I love it. I freaking love it. The great Mike Vrabel hates his daddy. But that, as much as he tries to not be Bill, he's Bill. And I love it. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. There's some rules that have changed in the NFL. There's one rule that seems to be the one everyone's talking about. I got a thought on it. We'll do it next. And your phone, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
Okay, so you mentioned that you were on the players committee. You were a player rep. You also used to be on the competition committee or the coaches end of it. I've heard you've been sitting on meetings now. So let's just do some quick league stuff. Where are you on the tush push?
We vote Tuesday, so I haven't decided yet. We'll vote Tuesday.
You haven't decided?
No, I have till Tuesday to have a conversation. And again, those will be, the team, Robert and Jonathan will ultimately have that vote. I don't carry a vote. I just have a.
You think they're going to vote on their own? Or aren't they going to follow your lead?
I think we'll have conversations on it.
So how come you're not willing to talk about it beforehand? Which is obviously fine, but that's
because
obviously
we haven't come to a final agreement on what we're going to do.
I find that impossible to believe.
Why? The meeting's Tuesday. The vote's Tuesday.
Okay, you've had months and years to look at the thing and consider
months
the thing.
And years. I've been here 3 months.
They've been running the play for 2 years, 3 years. Okay, that's fine. You just don't want to do it beforehand. You're not going to go into the breakfast here now and tell everybody, right?
Maybe I will.
The great Mike Vrabel. Is that not just classic Vrabel? Classic Vrabel. Here they are on Monday saying, what do you think of the tush push? And it's like, I have until Tuesday before we have to vote on that. So, I mean, surely you've talked about it. Surely you've made a decision. I haven't made a decision yet. Haven't made a decision. It's not Tuesday. Okay, Mike. Which, again, goes back to that whole Patriot Way thing. Because I remember I had John Robinson on the show in 2016. The day that the Titans had a choice about whether or not to exercise the fifth-year option on Chance Warmack. And I asked him at 9 a.m., are you going to exercise the fifth-year option on Chance Warmack? And he said, we're still working through some things. And at 11, there was an email saying that they had declined the fifth-year option on Chance Warmack. They weren't working through anything. He didn't want to say it. I also have another Robinson story like that I'm not going to tell, where he should have told me. And I was like, okay, dog, be that way. But again, that's that Patriot Way. So speaking of the tush push, the vote got tabled. Supposedly it was 16-16. And I've heard every single person asked about the tush push. And I've heard every single person with their response to the tush push. And all I've got to say is this. I'm done caring about all the complaining and bitching about the tush push. Again, Philadelphia runs it. They run it very well. For some reason, they're the only team in the league that can run it consistently. Whatever. If I had a vote, I would vote in favor of keeping the tush push simply because, number one, I don't like changing rules just because Philadelphia is really good at it, which is why Green Bay and the Rams and these teams want to get rid of it, is because strategically they want to hamper their competition, the Eagles. And I think that's bullcrap. I think you just need to play better defense. The end. Number two, I remember when Lorenzo Neal pushed Steve McNair in the back into the end zone in the 99 AFC Championship game. Nobody seemed to care, and I seemed to like it. So I can't like that and then say, oh, no, I don't like it because the Eagles are good at it. Here's my thing. If you don't want the tush push, here's what I'll say to you. Give me a real reason to get rid of it. Because the one time I hear people talk about, injuries could be a part of this, and we can't injuries. Well, Philly's been running this for 3 years, and no one's been injured. But all it'll take is one of these $50 million quarterbacks to break their neck, which I do think could probably happen. And when that happens, when Justin Herbert breaks his neck on the tush push, or Jalen Hurts, or Lamar Jackson, or Josh Allen, or one of these guys that the league needs breaks their neck on the tush push, then they'll get rid of it. And then I'll be okay with it. Until then, getting rid of it just because it works for Philly? No, we're not doing that. Sorry. So I'm so tired of this argument. And I also wish we'd talk about rules that actually matter. They're expanding the instant replay for the Sky Judge to be able to take penalties back, but they can't put the penalties, they can't throw the flag from the Sky Judge from New York. Why not? Why can we pick up a flag, but we can't throw one? Everybody was watching the Thursday night football game last year when on fourth down, the guy from the Rams just yanked the Minnesota quarterback's helmet off and they didn't throw a 15-yard penalty, and we just have to live with it. Why? We have the technology. It's not hard for somebody up in the booth to say to the lead official with the earpiece in, hey, that's a face mask. Throw the flag, 15-yard penalty, we play. There's too much money riding on these games from people betting it and what it means for all the coaches and the players and everybody else. There's too much money. And we have an easy ability to make this a reality, and we won't do it. That's what people should be talking about, not whether or not the tush push is going to exist. Ugh, drives me crazy. Unbelievable. Craig says, all I need from Vrabel this year is for him to say on to Cincinnati during a post-game presser. Vrabel never said that when he was here. But guess what? If you listen to Vrabel do an interview in New England, it's just him playing the greatest hits from here. That's all it is. So, for instance, he was talking about, oh gosh, what was it he was talking about yesterday that I'm like, oh God, here we go. I remember when he took the job and he was asked about leadership, and he gave a lecture about how, anybody can lead, any player, any coach can lead. And, it's about who wants to be a leader. It's not about being team captain. I'm like, oh, I've heard that one before. Oh, why can't I think of it? I heard it and I was like, oh, we've all heard this one from Vrabel when I listened to that interview that he did yesterday. 615-737-1025. Trevor Matage on his way out the door yesterday pissed some people off. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So Trevor Matage came on our show yesterday. It was kind of weird how we screwed around with the 4 o'clock hour because the Predators pregame came on at 5. So we had Barry Trotz at 4. You know, normally he comes on at 5, but with the early start, Barry came on at 4. Then we did Predators game day so we could keep Trevor at 4:30. And so Trevor Matage came on at 4:30 yesterday, and I was watching the clock very closely. Nick Frazier, I don't know if you were watching it as closely as I was, but I was kind of waiting for Trev to wrap it up there because I knew that, you know, we had to get out at a certain time to get Robbie on with the pregame show.
He gave you a nugget, and you couldn't react to it. And he was like, well, I guess you got to table it.
I was like, okay, well, see you tomorrow. But I woke up this morning and Robbie and Rex Road and Paul Kaharski were just bitching. Apparently, Trevor Matage pissed a lot of people off on his way out the door yesterday, which is kind of the yearly Trevor Matage makes everybody mad with some take that's really not that crazy of a take. Here's what Trevor Matage said yesterday here on the program that got apparently everybody in the morning all worked up.
This offensive line went from
hold on, let me set it up because it didn't include my question there. So I asked him, do you think that the Titans could have ruined Will Levis?
This offensive line went from heinous as a group to what's expected to be a very solid group, something that Will Levis has not had a chance to work with. And then his receivers and tight ends have been one of the most abysmal as a group since Levis has been thrown out here in the NFL. He's got no protection. He's got negative protection. He's got horrific protection. And receivers that as a group are not getting open and not making plays for him. And he's trying to make plays, but making mistakes on the way. And because of that, Levis has not had a chance to show what he can do. I think if with the improvement in the offensive line, if they could bring in some good young receivers to add to Calvin Ridley, Levis, it might end up being as good a quarterback as Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward will be in the NFL. I don't think they should bail on Levis right now because I don't think they have any idea how good Levis can be. And I think the fact that the label that's been hung around his neck that is more of the offensive line and the receivers than it ever was him is totally unfair to Will Levis, and I would love to see him have a chance to compete for that starting job with better people around him.
Okay, that was Trevor's take. I don't completely disagree with it. I also, though, don't think it really matters. So I absolutely agree that the Titans did everything they could for Will Levis not to succeed. They changed his coach after 1 year, which means an entirely different offense, an entirely different vernacular, an entirely different everything. In fact, they went from a coach that we know is a good coach in Mike Vrabel to a coach in Brian Callahan who, again, I like Brian Callahan, but we don't know if Brian Callahan can, coach. So that's first thing. Number two, they put him behind a horrendous offensive line his rookie year, and he got hurt multiple times. Number three, they put him behind an offensive line that was just as bad as the previous year's line. I mean, some of us begged them to go get a right tackle. But they just figured, Bill Callahan will fix it. Yeah, that didn't work. They've given him no tight end through 2 years. They keep making him play with Treylon Burks, who freaking stinks. And I feel like they hyped him up unnecessarily when they didn't have to. The Green Bay Packers made Jordan Love the starting quarterback after they traded Aaron Rodgers, and they were, let's see. The Titans made Will Levis the starting quarterback, and they started doing every podcast interview known imaginable, led by the owner, to make you think he was better than he was. That is not conducive for success from a young quarterback. But at the same time, regardless of whether or not it's the Titans' fault or Levis's fault, that chapter is over. We talk about, did the Titans ruin him? Well, he's already been ruined. And while there have been franchises that stink, like the Jets, that have absolutely ruined quarterbacks like Geno Smith, who had a second act, like Sam Darnold, who had a second act. It's hard for me to look at Will Levis and to say, okay, there's a possible reclamation to be done here. What are we reclamating? The former 33rd pick in the draft? For instance, Jameis Winston could be viewed as a reclamation project. Jameis Winston has led the NFL in passing yards in the past. Mac Jones, that's another reclamation project. He's going to San Francisco to be the backup, and then maybe he'll go be like Sam Darnold and do something. Mac Jones made the playoffs. Will Levis won like 2 games as a rookie, and won basically 1 game last season at Houston where he threw a pick 6. Daniel Jones, meanwhile, another possible reclamation project. Daniel Jones won a playoff game. Again, all these guys are Scarbini backups. Maybe they get in there. Will Levis hasn't done any of the things that those guys have done. Sam Darnold was 4-2 and had a higher QBR than Aaron Rodgers in 2022 as a starter in Carolina. Baker Mayfield won a playoff game in Cleveland for the first time in 30 years. Will Levis hadn't done any of that. So I hear what Trevor's saying about how can you blame Levis for the fact that Brian Callahan might not be a very good coach. They got rid of Derrick Henry, which absolutely they needed to keep. They needed to keep Derrick Henry for the young quarterback. They didn't do it. They keep running Traylon Burks out there. He never had a tight end. They drafted him a right tackle to play left tackle. The owner's out there hyping him up before he's ever pissed a drop in the NFL. I mean, I get it. But he did fail. Well, the Titans set him up to fail. Right. He did fail. So that chapter is over. Or at least it should be over. And I'm not ruling out the idea that Levis goes to another team and maybe puts together a career. But there's nothing about his entire tenure, and this starts from the moment he was drafted, in a league that will overdraft quarterbacks like there is no tomorrow. I got Field Yates right now on television talking about Shedeur Sanders at 6'1", who never won a meaningful college game with the number 3 overall pick. This league overdrafts quarterbacks like it's nobody's business. And that guy went in the 2nd round. There is nothing Will Levis has done that would argue that he's worth fighting for. Sorry. I liked Levis coming out. Now, I didn't know about his personality, and I do fear that his personality is kind of more worried about what everybody thinks than it is focused on being good, but that's not his fault. It's just kind of how he's wired. I'm sorry. But I liked Levis coming out. But the Titans did everything in their power to ruin him. Well, guess what? He's already ruined. I mean, when you ruin something, the point of that is, well, that's done. And that's where I am on Levis. But the amount of people that were like, oh, Trevor, I can't believe he'd say that. I can't believe. What, you think the Titans did a good job supporting Will Levis? Who played right tackle last year? Who played left tackle the year before that? Who was he throwing to? Who was his tight end? Did they go get him a veteran tight end? No. They put Chig out there, a tight end who can't catch. They let Derrick Henry go. They did everything they could to ruin that kid. But, again, he's already ruined, so to me, on to the next. 615-737-1025. I think there is a cautionary tale, and we'll get to your phones on this, but I think there is a cautionary tale when it comes to Will Levis that I think we need to remember with Cam Ward. And you ain't going to want to hear this, but again, that's your business, not mine. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. That's our phone number. We'll do that next here on the program. This Saturday, do not miss Nashville Super Speedway's pre-race concert contest, Nashville's next rising star at Dierks Bentley's Whiskey Row from 1 to 5. The contest will be emceed by 1025 The Game's Joe Dubin, and special guest DJ Mojo will keep the crowd hyped up all afternoon. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events.
You know, there are no guarantees. When you look at the Tennessee Titans, clearly that position held them back a year ago. You look at the numbers from the Tennessee Titans last year. Will Levis had a very disappointing season, threw almost as many interceptions as touchdowns. You go back and study them. There, you could see that they had the training wheels on. They were trying to protect him. He struggled late in games. He struggled situationally, especially on third down the red zone. He was sacked 41 times. If you just go back and look at the sack reel, a number of those are on him. His his play clock and his understanding of protections has to improve. He held the ball a lot in some situations where the ball's got to come out. You see, the quarterback should never get sacked on a 3-step drop. You know, we that's on the quarterback. Like if you hold the ball and take a second or third hits on a 3-step drop, shame on you.
That was Rich Gannon. So again, Will Levis, again, to me, that ship has sailed. But I do think that there is something when it comes to Will Levis and the Titans that we need to remember. Because the NFL got it right with Will Levis, one way or another. I believe that most people thought he was a first-round talent, including me. Size, athletic ability, arm strength, etc. But nobody took him in the first round. Carolina, Houston, Indianapolis all needed quarterbacks, all took other guys. Tampa needed a quarterback. Baker Mayfield was there on a 1-year prove-it deal. They needed a quarterback, and they drafted Kalijah Cansey instead. Washington needed a quarterback. They had Sam Howell as their starting quarterback, and they drafted Emmanuel Forbes. Even you, the team that took Will Levis in the draft, drafted a crappy guard with the 11th overall pick before taking Levis. Nobody took him in the first round. And do you want to know why nobody took him in the first round? It's the same reason why nobody took a quarterback last year after the 12th overall pick until the 5th round. Because these guys did not want to waste their careers, or at least risk their careers, on Will Levis. And I would say that's a good idea for Jason Light in Tampa Bay not to risk his career on Will Levis. That was a good idea to not risk your career on the mayonnaise eating banana peeler. That it was a good idea because the general manager who drafted Will Levis has been fired. The head coach who was here when they drafted Will Levis has been fired. The offensive coordinator at Cincinnati who volunteered to be the head coach to coach Will Levis is about to be fired. So when it comes to Cam Ward, the reason I bring that up is because The Athletic does this every year. Mike Sando, he's one of my favorites because he talks to league executives and he doesn't name them, but he talks to them. And they kind of break down free agency or break down the draft picks. And every year they say something about the Titans, and the Titans' whiny fan base gets upset when they hear something they don't want to hear. Like when the one guy said, the NFC exec said that, oh yeah, that Caleb Farley, that medical was awful. Well, they were right. When the one scout said that Treylon Burks was 2 biscuits shy of being a flexed out tight end, they were right. Last year, the league executive said, I don't know what Tennessee's doing in free agency. Oh, they're a haters. Let Rand cook. So I like this. These guys can say whatever they want, unfiltered, because they're anonymous. One executive said, quote, "There's no way they are not picking Cam Ward. They are trying to drum up an extraordinary deal, but no one is going to give that. They will take Cam Ward unless someone gives them something stupid." So this executive is saying, hey, they're trying to work some major deal because they want somebody to give them the package Carolina gave the Bears in order to move up 2 years ago. They want something like what the Giants called the day of the draft to try to get out of New England last year so that they could take Drake May. That's what they're hoping for, and this executive says they're not going to get it. Why does this executive say they're not going to get it? Because Cam Ward's not that good. And that's the one thing I will remind you when it comes to Will Levis, which is he was a first-round talent. The way he threw the ball, the competition he played in college, his size, his athleticism, he is a first-round player. And nobody took him in the first round because everybody was afraid if I draft this guy in the first round, it's going to get me fired. Well, right now, the Browns, who are desperate and need a quarterback, they say it is unlikely that they will move up with the Titans to try to get the number 1 pick to take Cam Ward. The Giants, who left the combine thinking they were going to trade up from 3-1 in order to get Cam Ward are now pretty much hell-bent on the fact that they're going to be stuck with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Again, a general manager who the owner has said is on the hot seat. A head coach that we know has to show development with a quarterback in order to justify his employment. And yet this executive says, yeah, nobody's going to give him that because he's not that good. So I ask you this. If he's not that good, why would you risk your career on drafting him number one overall? You can't tell me what Chris Sanders said earlier today, and I love Chris to death, but Chris was talking about, well, you need a quarterback, so might as well take him. Okay, and then when you win 5 games next year, then what? Unbelievable. 615-737-1025. Again, a lot of people reacting to what Trevor said about how the Titans did their best to ruin Will Levis. Again, that is a sentiment that I don't disagree with. But my favorite is Coy in Clarksville says, and our phone line is by WilsonCountyHunter.com. It's PK. No one cares what he has to say. There's a reason you haven't invited him on your show. He is obnoxious. Here's my issue with Paul. Because I actually think that if Paul and I had a show and Paul recognized like the talent and host that I am and all of that, then it would be a very good show. But the reason that it would never work is because Paul gets so defensive in his arguments, a sports argument, that every time he's wrong, he just turns it into something personal. And it's like, dude, like we're just arguing about sports. Like you don't need to get all crazy about, it's like I scooped him on the Taylor Zarzour thing and he texted me and made the comment on the air that, oh, he must be a client of one of your friends. Let me say this. I don't know who Taylor Zarzour's agent is. And I know Taylor Zarzour's agent isn't my agent. So I don't know. Actually, I don't know that. I mean, maybe I have no idea. But it had nothing to do with agents. So I would agree kind of with that sentiment. One texter says, I totally agree with Trevor on Levis and many other quarterbacks that go to teams where quarterbacks go to die. That's how I feel about Anthony Richardson and the Colts. Like, I'm willing to admit that Anthony Richardson might have been a complete and total bum. Like a total bum. No matter where he went. But Indianapolis, I said, if you draft this kid, there has to be a specific plan in place to bring this young guy along. And Indianapolis has done the exact opposite of what they need to do in order to make him a success. They don't have a tight end in Indianapolis. You have a young quarterback who's not accurate, and you're not going to give him a tight end? I mean, it's crazy. One texter goes crazy in the text line. Says, Trevor is nuts. If Josh Allen was our quarterback last year, we would have been a 10-win team, period. Levis stinks. Trevor is just being a typical Neanderthal on this one. In the modern NFL, quarterback is 60% athleticism, 40% mental. That is how dinosaurs like Brady, Breeze, and Rodgers can still play at a high level when every other position is already 10 years on the couch. Levis is crazy. He's got good athleticism, but his head is under spaghetti. It's a ridiculous take. Levis wasn't taken in the first round because responsible teams interviewed him and realized that he was crazy. So here's what I'll say about the Levis. I think there's something to that. That is, I can't exactly put my finger on it, but Will Levis tried way too hard. Like he tried too hard to be what he thinks a quarterback should be. Gentry Estes told me this, and I think it's spot on. He said, Will Levis is like an actor who's trying to play a quarterback in a movie and not really a quarterback. And I think there's something to that. And that's why, again, Levis's personality kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like Levis, and I know he's trying hard. Like everybody says he's a good guy, and I don't doubt that. And Levis is a tough competitor, and he wants to win, and he'll take the big shots, and he'll but it's like he's trying too hard. You know, Jaden Daniels did an interview at the Super Bowl in which Yahoo Sports or somebody had like these silhouettes of these quarterbacks playing. And they were like, all right, let's see how many you can get. And Jaden Daniels was the only one that got like 10 out of 10, where he can see a silhouette. And if you watch the video, it's incredible because it's like a silhouette. He's like, Kyler, silhouette Baker, silhouette Dak, silhouette Mahomes, silhouette Drake May. It's like, holy crap. And he's like, yeah, I guess I just watch a lot of film. It's not like Drake or Jaden Daniels is going out of his way to tell everyone like, oh yeah, I'm obsessed with football. He just is. I felt like with Levis, it was always, I'm trying to show you. I'm the first guy at the building. I'm taking my guys to Cabo. I'm doing the commercial with the mayonnaise. And I don't know. Just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. 615-737-1025. Fitz joins us next on the program. And the latest from Adam Schefter, which might be a good thing about trading the number one pick. It might be a bad thing about, I don't know. We'll get to that next here on the program. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. All right, we got to talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Why? Because I love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Nobody wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency, especially not me. And most of the time when something happens, you don't know what it'll cost, if it's going to get fixed correctly, or if someone is just trying to sell you something that you do not need. Well, guess what? You don't have that problem when you call Hiller, because their experts are going to solve your problems and solve them quickly. The price you're told is the price you'll actually pay, with no hidden fees, no surprises, and nothing else on your bill. Book now online at happyhiller.com, just like I do. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call that fish truck today. Stillman and Company. Hey, Nate Land presents Good Clean Fun on Tuesday, April 8th at the Ryman Auditorium, hosted by Aaron Weber and featuring comedians Ryan Hamilton, Dustin Nickerson, Derek Stroop, Lance Larrabee, Mia Jackson, and Paula Kozensky. Be caller 5 right now. And wait a minute, this doesn't say I'm giving away tickets. This just says, am I giving away tickets here? Does it say that we have tickets to give away?
Yes.
All right, good. Be caller 5, and you're winning tickets to go see that at the, again, April 8th at the Ryman Auditorium. So Adam Schefter on his Adam Schefter podcast was talking about the quarterbacks and the teams and the needs and Shedeur Sanders. And here's a little nugget from Adam Schefter as far as potential trade partners with the Titans.
And it certainly feels like the Cleveland Browns are inclined to look elsewhere aside from quarterback. And it's starting to feel like the New York Giants at number 3 are starting to look elsewhere other than quarterback. So if the Browns don't take Shedeur Sanders at 2, and if the Giants don't take Shedeur Sanders at 3, and that is the feel that I'm getting recently, where is Shedeur Sanders going?
Okay. Jason Fitz joins us now on the program. Fitz, do you buy that? Every mock draft says Shedeur Sanders is gone by 3 to the Giants. Do you buy that from Schefter? Do you buy that, hey, if Cam Ward goes 1, no Shedeur 2, no Shedeur 3?
Yeah, so here's the thing. If I'm applying my own common sense, I don't think, as I've told you a million times, that Shedeur is worth the number 2 overall pick. My problem is I don't love that the Browns have no other answer. So it's hard for me to believe that the Browns aren't going to take a quarterback in the first round. But that being said, I honestly think this would be the smartest thing we've seen. And this is where I continue to say, like, we've got to start trying to figure out what's real. Like, how much of this is Will Levis, flying up draft boards, and how much of this is not, And so for me, the fact is, I think I've heard now over the course of the last 2 weeks, I've heard bottom of the first round and 2nd overall over and over and over again. Like, I honestly think, like Stillman, nobody genuinely knows. And if Shefty's saying it, then there's truth to it. Our guys are at the owners' meetings as well for Yahoo. And all I know is that Joria Smith told me today that she can understand where Shefty's coming from based on the rumblings happening in Florida right now. So I think there is something to this. And if that's the case, then I'll go back to what I said to you a month ago. Like, C-Rob told us that this could be the wildest draft day we've seen since Aaron Rodgers. Like, if he doesn't go 2 or 3, then that tells you that 2 teams incredibly needy at the quarterback position realized that common sense prevailed and that Shedeur's not worth the number 2 overall pick. So now I got to look at the next organizations up and say, do I believe these guys are going to make a mistake? I think taking Shedeur in the top 10 is a mistake. I still think that if we just applied his actual tape to the actual player, that he's a low first-round pick. So I think the free fall could happen. But then what do the Browns do at a quarterback?
So I will ask you this, because I saw a report yesterday from the New York Daily News that Mike Borgonzi and Joe Shane were sipping coffee together at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach. And I said, that's not nothing. I said, that clearly the Titans have the number 1 pick. They are sending out signals that they'd like to trade. The Giants don't have a quarterback. Fitz, I have said, if I'm the Giants and I'm Joe Shane and I'm on the hot seat and I have to show, long-term growth this season, I would bite the bullet and trade up for Cam Ward. And yet it sounds like everybody's saying the Giants won't do that and they'll roll with Russell Wilson and with Jameis Winston. What do you make of the Titans and the Giants situation? What do you make of that little nugget of them sharing a coffee together?
Yeah, I think you're right. By the way, nothing happens accidentally at the owners' meetings. Nothing, ever. There is no, we bumped into each other at a ski lodge at that thing. Like, that's not real. So now you got to ask yourself, what is real? And so let's go back to the stuff we were hearing weeks ago, where it was like, oh, there could be all of this trade value and the Titans might be open to it. And it felt like people were trying to talk themselves into Cam Ward was going to be traded for the first overall pick. And at the time I said, well, that feels like the Titans camps are putting that out to try and elevate the value of whatever they get in the trade. Everybody's considering trading up. Now what do we get? Well, the Browns and the Giants might not even be interested in a quarterback. They might just want to sit back. Like, it feels like now we're getting PR machines that are trying to drive the trade value down. There is always something to the number 3 overall pick and the number 1 overall pick having coffee. That's real. That's fact. You are 100% right on that. So to me, this is the Giants, sitting down and saying, hey, what's real? What's a real value that it would take to move up to 1? And then they're going to turn around and say, nah, we're not that interested. And we're going to get all the way up to draft day. And I'll give you credit. I've stolen this from what you said to me last week because I can't get it out of my head. My biggest question is, if you're not sold on Cam Ward to the fact that you're telling everybody to sit down, shut up, color in their books, and don't even call, you shouldn't take him with the number 1 overall pick. Like, if you don't love the number 1 overall pick and put a ring on it, spend the rest of your life level with them, if you're not willing to risk your job, your livelihood, your everything, your organization on a number 1 overall pick, like, then you don't take that player. And so to me, I think the concerning part of this is that they're still taking phone calls, that they're still taking meetings. Like, ever since we talked last week, I can't get it out of my head. I think you're right. If I'm the Titans, I'd be planting the flag right now. Hey, Cam Ward's the future. Cam Ward's iconic. We're not, don't even call us. Don't talk about us until draft day, because if you talk about us, the only thing you need to be talking about is why Cam Ward's going to save this franchise. If you don't feel that all the way into your loins for the Titans, then don't take it.
Well, to that, I would say that if I'm the Giants, I don't have a choice. I tried that first year to lose with Daniel Jones and then get Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. That didn't happen. We won. We couldn't pick Young and Stroud. Then we gave Daniel Jones the contract. That didn't work out. Then we passed on McCarthy and all those other guys last year. We tried to trade for Drake May. We didn't get him. We tried to go for Matthew Stafford. We didn't get him. We tried to go for Aaron Rodgers. We didn't get him. We're on the hot seat. We won 3 games last year. If I was Joe Shane, I would do it. Even though I don't believe in Cam Ward, I would do it because I don't feel like there's any other way that he keeps his job. If they win 7 games with Russell Wilson at quarterback, they're out. I don't think there's any way that they are able to save their jobs than showing that they're on the right path with a young quarterback. I don't think Cam Ward's going to be that guy, but if I was in his shoes, I'd have to hope Cam Ward's going to be that guy. Do you think that that is a stretch for the Giants?
No, everything you just said is true. But if the Titans aren't going to make that move, if they aren't going to make that trade, then they better be damn sure that he's that guy. That's my bigger. You're right. Like, everything you just described is desperation for the Giants. And I don't think that necessarily the Titans are in that same corner of desperation. As hard as it is for Titans to hear that, fans to hear that, I don't think they're in that same desperate corner. So now you got 2 people at the poker table in very different situations. So I agree with you on the Giants' logic. I'm just saying that if I'm the Titans, I'm not even taking the phone call if I think Cam Ward is in. And if I am taking the phone call, I think that's a pretty good indication that there's a problem with my eval on Cam Ward. But yes, people around the Giants and people that know the Giants well have told me flat out that the Giants believe they can win some games with Russell Wilson. But can they win enough games to keep everybody employed? I don't think so. So I think Russ is washed. So what are they, a 5-win team with Russ? What they need is Russ to sit the first half and to play the first half of the season until whatever rookie they draft can then come in and give everybody hope in the back half of the season. That's the best methodology. And I don't believe in any angle of that for the Giants. I genuinely believe that the Giants there's no nice way to screw it. They are screwed. There is no nice way for the Giants to end the season. It is going to end in a disaster.
Okay, so I am going to put you on the hot seat right now. The Titans keep saying we're going through the process and then we'll know what we're going to do. And again, I believe that you've already had Cam Ward at the combine. You've already had Cam Ward in for a visit. You've already gone to the pro day. You've already had a private workout. If you love Cam Ward, you know. So who do you think makes the number 1 pick? I think we can both agree Cam Ward is going at number 1. Who is making the pick?
I think the Titans pick Cam Ward number 1 overall. And I think it's a huge mistake. Like, I hope Titans fans hear this. Like, I genuinely believe what would be incredible is to hear that the Tennessee Titans have the 3rd or 4th overall pick or 5th overall pick. Like, move down and let these 2 quarterback-hungry teams at the top waste their first 2 overall picks, and then understand that you're going to get one of the truly good players. If there are elite players in this year's draft, if you believe that, they aren't the quarterbacks. So, picking 3rd, 4th, or 5th, like I've told you this a million times, as a Raiders fan, as a diehard lifelong Raiders fan that has Geno is my quarterback right now. That's the closest I have to a long-term solution. My nightmare is that Shedeur is still sitting there at 6 and the Raiders take him. That's my nightmare. That's how little I believe in Shedeur Sanders. My bigger nightmare, I didn't think I'd have one until now, is the thought that the Raiders give up future equity to move up for Cam Ward. Like that would it would make me sick to my stomach. I hope I'm wrong for the case of these players. I believe that the smartest thing for the Titans to do would be on the clock, third, fourth, fifth, anywhere lower than 1 or 2.
You know, it's funny. Jason Fitz is with us. You say that I think the Titans are going to take Cam Ward and that it's going to be it would be a nightmare decision. If the Giants traded, given where Shane and Dable are, if they traded 3, 34, 99, which is in the third round, they have a high third, but they get to keep that. And next year's second to move up to number 1 to take Cam Ward. Don't you think that'd be a pretty good trade for both sides? And don't you think that that's kind of what the Giants have to do?
Yeah, I would do that trade in a heartbeat. The people I've talked to have said that there's still belief that to move up from 3 to 1 will require an extra first-round pick. And that's where I tell Titans fans, like, if you can get the Giants' first-round pick next year, you take that deal 72 times, right? Because the Giants are going to stink this year. Even if Cam turns out to be pretty good, it's going to take Cam some time. Like, even if I'm wrong about Cam Ward, it's going to take him some time. So that first-round pick next year would be money. But yes, if you're telling me that you're going to get the strength of this draft is in the top, 70 players, 80 players, a lot of starters there. You can get value out of that. And then just pick up something for next year too. Yeah, that would be huge.
Okay, so you're the Titans and the Giants call, and the offer is 3, 34, 99, and next year's second. You're the Titans, yes or no?
Yeah, I take that.
You're the Giants. The Titans, they want next year's first. You don't want to part with next year's first because it could be number 1, and John Merrill wants to keep next year's first. 3, 34, 99, and next year's second. Would you do that if you're Joe Shane? Because again, you don't really have a lot of options to keep your job.
Yeah, no, you do that if you're Joe Shane, because the fact is, if it works, nobody will care what you gave up. If it doesn't work, you're getting fired anyway. So it's somebody else's problem. That's just being real.
So why isn't that the deal? Why is that not the deal?
My guess is that the Titans want an extra first on it, and you got to sell that to Mara. That would be my honest answer of why it wouldn't be done yet, is that the Titans want an extra first round pick, and Joe Shane would be happy giving it to him, but the Mara family has to approve that. So that gets a little bit, that's where it gets dicey. Owner steps in and says, no, I don't want to give up something next year that has that level of consequence when you won't even be around for it. So that's my guess, and look, if those are the types of offers that come in, I'm not sure we don't see a deal by the time we hit, the draft. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in 4 or 5 days when the Florida sort of steam has come off everybody and we get to figure out what's real and what's not real from these owners' names.
Jason Fitz, as always, great stuff. We appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a great week.
Yep, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio. Coming up next, I saw a mock draft. Now, it used to be when the Titans are picking 13th, it's like, Mel Kiper's got a mock draft. Unfortunately, everybody's mock draft has the Titans doing the same thing at number 1. But it is a 2-round mock draft from Field Yates. And there is one player that if they're available at 35, I will go bananas if the Titans don't take. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
we are joined by the all-time leading receiver at The Ohio State University, Mecca Abuka, joining us on the show. Man, let me tell you right now, just saying that, because there's a long list of great receivers to come out of this school. How you doing today, by the way?
I'm doing amazing. It's a dream come true to be here at the NFL Scouting Combine, something I've dreamed of since I was a little kid. So being able to spend this week here talking to these NFL players is pretty surreal to me.
When I say you set the school record for the most receptions at The Ohio State University, when you hear that, what does that mean to you?
Gosh, it's just, thinking back to where I started and just all the people who helped me get to this point, it just makes me super emotional. And I'm so grateful for the path that God has given me, honestly. I came into a really crowded wide receiver room, and that's exactly the way I wanted it. I wanted to grow and I wanted to develop at the position. I wanted to get better at football the second I stepped on campus. And leaving there as the all-time leading receiver is, it's just a blessing.
There you go. That was Emeka Abuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, on Sirius XM NFL Radio at the Combine. And so Field Yates has a 2-round mock draft. And you guys know how I am when it comes to mock drafts. I love them. But it hasn't been very fun when it comes to this year and the mock drafts, because the mock drafts this year, we all know, Cam Ward, number 1 overall to the Titans, and everybody always does kind of a first-round mock draft. And every now and then there'll be somebody who does a 7-round mock draft, makes every pick kind of thing, which I do like. But then at the same time, there's very few, credible multi-round mocks. And I saw ESPN has Field Yates mock draft. And surprise, surprise, Cam Ward, number 1 overall. So I moved all the way down to the second round to say, okay, who's he got him taking in the second round? And he has the Titans taking Donovan Ezeraku with the 35th pick in the draft. Now, I had Donovan Ezeraku in my mock draft that I did last week. I had Donovan Ezeraku going off the board in the first round. So I'm like, okay, Donovan Ezeraku, not bad. Then I see who else goes. Okay, Trey Amos, a corner, goes to Jacksonville at 36. Josh Simmons, a tackle, goes to Kansas City at 37. Tyler Booker, a guard, goes to the Giants at 38. And then I see Emeka Abuka, wide receiver, Ohio State, goes at 39 to the Chicago Bears. Field Yates writes, as the Bears look for one more playmaker to maximize Ben Johnson's offense, they could turn to the ever-reliable Abuka in round 2. He set the Ohio State record for catches and is a great route runner. And I said, whoa. If Emeka Abuka, who I think goes off the board by the Chargers pick at 22, I think Emeka Abuka is a slam dunk first rounder. If Emeka Abuka is available at 35, and we don't do enough talking about who's going to be there at 35 or who's not going to be there at 35, but if Emeka Abuka out of Ohio State is on the board at 35, after you've taken Cam Ward, you have to take him. They showed a graphic on the Field Yates mock draft special on ESPN earlier today. They showed a graphic of the Titans depth chart. Calvin Ridley at wide receiver, no problem there. Van Jefferson in the slot. Not the biggest Van Jefferson fan, but again, not the end of the world there. Dan Moore, Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler, J.C. Latham. No problems there. Chiga Okonkwo at tight end. God, I'd love a much better tight end, but fine. Tony Pollard at running back. Do you know who the other wide receiver? That's 10 guys with Cam Ward at quarterback. That's 10 guys. Do you know who the other wide receiver on that graphic was? Treylon Burks. They let NWI go. Apparently, he got $3.2 million from Miami. PK says they offered him $3 million. They don't have a second receiver. And Emeka Abuka is so smooth. He was never kind of the sexy, explosive draft product that Marvin Harrison Jr. was, or that Jeremiah Smith, who's going to be a top 4 pick in 2 years, that he was last season. But all Emeka Abuka does is catch the ball and get open and make big plays. And that, to me, is exactly what you need. If you're the Titans and you're going to do this Cam Ward thing, which, again, I wouldn't do, but that's their business, not mine. Emeka Egbuka is exactly what you need. I just have never talked about it because I assume Emeka Egbuka goes in the first round because Emeka Egbuka is really, really, really good. And so when I see that, and I see that he's available at 35 in Field Yates mock draft, I'm like, you take him. How about this for his PFF grades? This is how reliable Emeka Egbuka is. His receiving grades on deep passes, so that's 20 yards or more, 93.6. Medium, 10 to 19. His receiving grade, 97.3. Short, 93.4. Like, he's just a solid, he's so good. He doesn't drop the ball. He had 5 drops all season. He was a great contested catch guy this past year at Ohio State. He was kind of the glue of that offense with all those great players. And the guy it felt like they could always count on was Emeka Egbuka. Now, he plays a lot of slot, not as much wide as I'd like, but he is a special player. Again, he caught 13 contested catches last year. So when I see him available, I'm like, you take him. And not only that, he's the all-time leading receiver at Ohio State. But listen to this. It wasn't like Emeka Egbuka, and we're talking about a young quarterback and developing a young quarterback. It wasn't like, hey, one game he had 7 for 250. Emeka Egbuka in the championship game, 6 for 64. Texas, 5 for 51. Oregon, 5 for 72. Tennessee, 5 for 81. Michigan, 4 for 51. Indiana, 7 for 80. Again, he's just consistent. This is what you need. This is the guy. So when I saw Field Yates mock draft, again, I wouldn't get super worked up one way or another, but I see them passing on Emeka Egbuka. I'm like, no. If Emeka Egbuka is there at 35, you take him. You take Emeka Egbuka. That's the end of my rant. Jared versus Joe is up next. 615-737-1025. Joe Rexroad joins us. Nick Frazier, you are taking the role of Caroline Fenton today. Do you think you're ready for this?
I hope so. Hopefully I can live up to it. I feel prepared.
We shall see. Stillman and Company, Jared versus Joe, 102.5, 106 of the game. There you go. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. By the way, good luck to the Belmont women's basketball team playing on ESPN2 right now in the WBIT Championship against Minnesota. And it's tied 0-0, and Belmont just got a rebound. So good for them. Nick Frazier is going to be in for Caroline Fenton today, who is on her way to, I believe, Tampa, Florida for the women's Final Four. So, Nick, you have big shoes to fill today. How do you feel about this?
I feel pretty good. When I got the call, the right arm was ready to go out of the bullpen and, make some questions and see if you guys might have a good answer on them.
Joseph Robinette Rexroad Jr. is with us, as he always is, for Jared versus Joe. Hello, Joseph.
Hello.
All right. Without further ado, hit it.
All right. First on the list.
You got to play the intro.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Nick, you jumped false starts.
I got excited.
Caps fake. False start, Nick Frazier, 5 yards. You can start calling you Dylan Radins. Okay, Frazier, you're up.
All right. First on the docket, might be a softball. We'll see. I have here, will the Tennessee Titans trade away their top overall pick a week ahead of the NFL draft? Excuse me.
Who goes first?
Go ahead, Jared. Your show.
I mean, I think they want to. I think the reason they keep saying, oh, yeah, it's a process. We'll see. Yeah, we got to accept the process. Yeah, we'll see. They do not, Brian Callahan said it a couple times that if you think someone's a franchise quarterback, you do not trade them. There's not a price for that. The Dolphins try to offer 3 first-rounders and more to move up for Joe Burrow, and Cincinnati said no. Washington said, yeah, we're happy with where we are. We're not trading out of number 2. If you think somebody is a franchise quarterback, you take them. Last year, or a couple years ago, Houston thought about getting cute. They heard the Titans might creep up. They said, screw it, take them. I do not think the Titans view Cam Ward as a franchise quarterback because most people that are speaking with the ability to, the freedom to do so, are not coming out and saying they think he's a franchise quarterback. I think they are hopeful that the Giants at 3 get desperate and do it, but all indications are at this point the Giants aren't going to do that. So I don't think they'll trade the pick, but I think they want to trade the pick. And again, it's like I asked Fitz in the last hour. I said, what do you think? 3, 34, 99, and next year's second in exchange for number 1. Who says no? He says Titans should say yes, but they're going to want more. And the Giants will not want to give up next year's second rounder, but they should say yes too. But again, I think the Titans will end up making the pick, and I think it'll be Cam Ward, and I don't think they want to take Cam Ward.
Okay, Joe?
I don't think they'll trade the pick. I don't necessarily share Jared's conviction that they just don't want him. They don't want to take him. They definitely want to trade it. I think that they are open to the possibility and they're leaving the door cracked. But I mean, all the moves that they've made, especially the QB room stuff, would suggest that they've been talking for a while or thinking for a while that they're going to, take a quarterback at 1. Again, I do agree that if this was the guy who everyone knew was going at the top of the draft and wow, you're so lucky that you get the number 1 pick this year and it's Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow, whoever, then it would be different and we'd all know. And that's what it is. It's not that level of prospect, but I don't necessarily agree with Jared that they don't want him or that they want to trade. I think that they have to stay open to that and hope that there's some Hail Mary crazy deal thrown at them late and then they'll decide. But I mean, I think that they've pretty clearly talked themselves into Cam Ward at 1.
Okay. So again, if they're willing to trade it, then that means that they do not view him as a franchise quarterback, right?
Well, I don't know about view him as a franchise quarterback, but they don't view him as an absolute guy you must take at the very top of a given draft.
Well, that's what a franchise quarterback is.
Yeah, but I mean, well, I guess it just depends. That's semantics then.
Like, do you view Jared Goff as a franchise quarterback?
I mean, the Rams did when they drafted him.
But I'm talking about right now. Would you say franchise quarterback Jared Goff?
I mean, he's an interesting case because he's actually been incredible the last couple of years, and they've been elite. But a lot of that is because they are elite around him. So, I think what he proves is that you can at least be discussed as that if you have a great team around you.
Okay,
right?
so the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to franchise quarterback, I mean, to me, I think there's like 7 or 8 guys in the league that are currently franchise quarterbacks. Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Mahomes, Daniels, Stroud, and I'll throw Herbert in there too. Like, I think Herbert is a franchise quarterback. And so, like, Jacksonville thinks they have they think Trevor Lawrence is a franchise quarterback. Dallas thinks Dak Prescott's a franchise quarterback. If you think Cam Ward is going to be one of those guys, if you think he's going to be Justin Herbert, you take him. If you think he's going to be Jaden Daniels, you take him. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you think someone's a franchise quarterback and you don't have one, you take them. So if they're trying to drum up interest with the Giants or somebody else, or they're saying these things like, well, we got to go through the process, that tells me they don't think he's a franchise quarterback. And I do not think it's a good idea to take a quarterback number 1 overall for your own job security. I don't think it's a good idea to take a quarterback number 1 overall that going into it, you don't think is a franchise quarterback.
I think they think he could be. But yes, I agree. That's the difference. And I would also not do it.
So do you think Cam Ward could be? You think the other guy's better?
Yeah, I wouldn't take. No, I've already said I would not take Cam Ward with this pick. I wouldn't take either of them with this pick. But if I had to take a quarterback with this pick, it would be Shedeur Sanders.
Frazier, what's next?
All right. Next on the docket, staying with quarterbacks. If Will Levis is right now looking at be on the roster, if he is back next season, and after Trevor Matage's comments from yesterday, do you believe he has a true option to be quarterback 1 for the Tennessee Titans?
So I'll go first.
Yes, go ahead, Joe.
We talked about this today on our show. Basically, like, I look at him, I do look at the whole thing and stuff they've said, and the fact that, again, like the NFL, the Rappaport Schefter crew, every chance they get, say the Titans are, they're open, they're not decided, all this stuff. I think basically it's the scenario of someone blows them away, which I think is unexpected at this point, and I don't think they expected at this point, but someone blows them away with an offer, and they move down, and they don't end up with a quarterback, and now, well, I guess it's a good thing that Levis is still here under contract, because there you go, he gets QB1 for another year. I mean, that's the only scenario, and that is, to me, why he's here. I think they picked up those other guys with the idea of they're going to draft Cam Ward, and then they're going to move on from Will Levis. They're going to trade him and get a 6th for a 7th or whatever. I mean, it'll be very minor in terms of the return, and he'll get a fresh start and they'll get a fresh start. But if by chance something crazy happens, they at least have a QB1 in him, because look, the other 2 guys, you can't with a straight face look at anybody and ask them to pay tickets to come to a stadium and watch either of those other 2 guys be your starting quarterback. It's a stretch enough to ask them to do that with Will Levis.
I don't think you can try to sell tickets to get people to come to Will Levis after you sold tickets last year to get people to come watch Will Levis. Like, they were selling expensive PSLs with a picture of him on the wall. I don't think you can do that a second year in a row. So
well, no, but I mean, but compare that to Brandon Allen or Tim Boyle.
So I'm going to tell you right now, I think that let's just say that happens. Let's say the Giants call up the day of the draft and say, fine, we'll do 3, 34, next year's 1, and a 3 next year. And I think we can all agree you would take that. Joe, you would take that if they called you and offered that if you were the Titans.
Yes.
And you and I think, can agree, we think the Titans will take that too, right?
I would think so.
Okay. So if that happens, and now you move to 3, and you don't take Shedeur Sanders at 3. So let's say you take Travis Hunter. I believe that while on the depth chart, Levis might be the number 1 guy after the draft or whatever, I think Brandon Allen would beat out Will Levis in training camp. I also think the Titans do have a plan B in their pocket, which would be dealing an extra pick that they get in the deal with the Giants, that they would call Cincinnati and offer Will Levis and a pick to move to get Jake Browning to be the starting quarterback. Like, I think that might be the plan B is, okay, now all the quarterbacks are gone and we've got all these extra picks in the deal that we made with the Giants. Let's take a pick, maybe a third next year. And we've already got a third next year from the Giants at it. Let's flip that with Will Levis. He'll be the backup to Joe Burrow. He already knows the system there. Burrow's a veteran. Let's flip that for Jake Browning, and Jake Browning will be our bridge quarterback while we await what's next. But I think Brandon Allen, if there was a training camp battle, I think Brandon Allen would beat out Will Levis. And if Will Levis is the quarterback next year, I think by week 3, Brandon Allen would be the starting quarterback. And I don't think Brandon Allen's very good, but I do think Brandon Allen's better than Will Levis.
Okay. I haven't watched a whole lot of Brandon Allen. I'm not going to argue. Trevor Matage might argue with you.
Have you watched a lot of Will Levis?
I have.
If they thought Mason Rudolph was better than him at the end of the year where they kept playing Mason Rudolph, though you think Mason Rudolph's one of the best backups in the history of the NFL. But
Ever.
You said he was a top 3 backup, the guy freaking sucks.
Top 3, top 5, what did I say? Top 10, top 3, top 12, what did I say?
Well, you kept moving the goalpost once everyone kept telling you how stupid it was that you said top 3.
Yeah. Speaking of moving goalposts, you somehow have total amnesia, never remember anything Trevor Matage said about Will Levis all year. Never. I have no idea. I don't know.
As you guys this morning, and this is Joe changing.
Boy, that was pretty.
This is Joe.
Strong.
This is Joe changing the subject here.
I don't care.
But last year,
that I said Mason Rudolph is the number 1 back in the league.
But
I don't care.
Last year, when we had Trevor on, I had no recollection of what he said about Levis. I remember that he thought Callahan stunk, and he complained about the offensive line every week, which is what we talked to him about. We talked to him about Carthon, and he thought that Callahan was doing Rand Carthon. I thought that it was more coaching than it was players. And so as you guys were doing that this morning, like, oh my God, can you believe Jared Stillman doesn't remember what some guy said 7 months ago?
Some guy, it's the guy you have every week.
Again,
you never asked him about Levis all year?
I did. I texted
man.
Ian and I was like, do you remember? I asked Ian, I said, Ian, I go, do you remember what Trevor said about Levis? Ian was listening to it. He's like, I can't remember either. Had to go back and look and found that in October, Trevor said that he would stick with Rudolph at that point in time. So even Ian couldn't remember. And he was there too.
Yeah, but you're the weirdo.
You guys are treating it like, oh my
everything.
God, can you not believe that he doesn't remember absolutely everything that came out of absolutely everybody's mouth?
Not one time of the main topic of the entire sports year.
The main topic for me was not Levis. The main topic for me was Carthon and Brinker and Amy and that group.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't much Levis talk last year.
Okay, but are you debating that the number 1 topic for me was not Carthon and Brinker?
I'm debating that Will Levis was as talked about as any person in the Nashville sports scene last year by everybody.
Okay, well, again, I'm talking about what happened on this show, which you're telling me I didn't remember was being. We talked Rand Carthon every day.
You were just way off the beaten path. Okay, all right.
I mean, I was ready to move off of Levis after I was like, yeah, this guy sucks. In fact, before he threw that flick 6, and I mean, it wasn't on the air, but before he threw the flick 6 to the Bears, you know how when Fox has the game, it pops up at the bottom, like what the stats are. And it said like Will Levis, 11 of 17 for 78 yards or something. And I looked at my dad and I was like, I think this guy's like a backup. I'm like, Dan Marino is not throwing for 70 yards in the 4th quarter of the first game in year 2. If that's what this guy's going to become, which is what the fans were hoping he'd be a franchise quarterback. And then on the next play, he just, passed it off right to the Bears. And I was like, yep. Okay. Well, we got the answer now. And then everybody said, Jared it's too early. It's too early to tell. It's too early, Jared. It's the first game.
Let me guess.
It's one mistake.
No, let me guess. everybody said, no, Jared. And you were right. Is that right? Is that what happened?
There were a lot of people that were like, Jared, you don't understand.
But you were right. Oh, thank goodness for Jared.
I mean, I have been right a lot around here. That's like somebody yesterday saying,
always, I think.
Somebody around here saying, like, the Titans don't listen to you. And I was like, yeah, they've been doing a great job themselves lately. More Jared versus Joe to continue next here on our program. Stillman and Company, 105, 106 for the game.
Discussions.
What's the deal with this quad?
Bigger arguments.
I was right. I had my finger on the pulse of this team.
It's so dumb. It's time.
Oh, it was the cap. Cap.
For Jared versus Joe.
For you, this is actually kind of well-reasoned.
Brought to you by First Horizon Bank. Big bank muscle. Small bank hustle. And by Pella Windows and Doors.
We make the rules around here now.
Now on Stillman and Company.
Let's get it on! Frazier, in for Caroline.
I didn't jump the gun.
You did not. Proud of you.
Thank you. All right. For question number 3, Joe, if you were listening earlier, you heard Jared mention something about the Predators and UC Saros. Jared made the comparison of UC Saros' contract is just as bad as Deshaun Watson's. Your thoughts? Is it as bad as Deshaun Watson's?
I did not hear this. This sounds pretty spicy. And no, I would not say it's as bad because I still don't know for certain that he's toast. I know how bad it looks right now. I know for certain Deshaun Watson is done playing quarterback in the NFL. He's done. He will never be a viable starting quarterback in the NFL. So I already know that entire contract was wasted. I mean, it's just an absolute, and the real shame of that with them is that they have built a really good roster. They have a lot of good things in place, including a good coach. So when you consider, we already have a final answer on Deshaun Watson. It's the worst possible answer, and it has betrayed what could have actually been a really good era for the Browns with just decent quarterback play, which, by the way, Baker Mayfield could have given them that, and they probably would have won more playoff games than the one he won against Pittsburgh a few years ago. That is worse than, although I understand, NHL contracts are obviously guaranteed. This is many years of UC Saros. It does not look good. I'm not optimistic. It looks really bad. I still don't know. I don't know for sure, and Jared doesn't either. He'll probably try to claim now that he does know for sure that this is it for Saros. We have all the data we need. We don't. We're going to find out next year. It's a critical year for him. He has to bounce back dramatically. I have no doubt that he'll do all he can to do that. But as I said, before all this stuff, and we were talking about this and the choice at goalie last year, I just worry about a goalie of his size and of his style, the need for explosive athleticism to be effective. I worry about that and a long-term contract. I think that the window is smaller, that the hourglass runs out a little faster. So, I mean, this year is obviously terrible, and you hope it's just the aberration, but we don't know for sure that it's done. So no, Deshaun Watson's contract is worse than UC Saros' contract. I feel okay about that take. Jared, take it away.
So here's where I think the comparison is apt. I think in each case, the only thing that the teams that have signed those players to those ridiculous contracts can do is hope that player plays better. Like, that's the only thing the Predators can do right now. I like Barry Trotz.
That's true.
And they swung and missed last year in free agency, and I don't think it's the end of the world. But if UC Saros doesn't play a lot better, Barry Trotz has no way of surviving that UC Saros contract, which, again, many of us begged him not to do, including Joe, who begged him not to do that. Not as much as I did, but Joe was against it. And I look at this and I'm like, there's no way out of it. There's no way out of the Deshaun Watson contract. The Deshaun Watson contract is the only contract in the NFL where I've truly sat back and said, there is no way around this. Like, they have to pay that money no matter what. And with Watson, like, at least now the owner has admitted it was a failure and they're going to be done with it next year. They're going to release him next year. This will be his last year on the team. They'll pay him the money next year. He'll go away. They'll eventually get a new quarterback, and on they go. With Saros, like, as a Predators fan, we're stuck with this for the next 8 seasons. 8! That's so long. 8 years is so long. And they're stuck with him, and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's the same as the Deshaun deal. So while on one front, I would agree, like the Deshaun contract, we know that that's a failure for sure. There is nothing about UC Saros' career that would tell you, as of right now, with anything other than hope, that you're going to win as a Predators fan, that you're going to win a playoff series over the next 8 years. He has yet to win a playoff series as the Predators goalie. He has yet, as the Predators goalie, to enter a game that could clinch a playoff series. And yet they're stuck with him for the next 8 years. He's the third worst goalie or second worst goalie, depending on what stats you're looking at. He's the second or third worst goalie this year with Yuko Pekka Luukkonen, whoever that is in Buffalo, and Jeremy Swayman, who's already gotten the coach fired in Boston and is going to get the general manager fired. I mean, it's a disaster. I just don't know what they could do. And that takes me back to Deshaun Watson. In every single one of these other kind of contracts in the NFL, they can get out of it. Russell Wilson, that was a bad trade, bad contract, got out of it. Jared Goff, they didn't want him anymore, got out of it. You can get out of these. Can't get out of the Deshaun deal. You guaranteed all the money. Can't get out of this. It's for 8 years, and it hasn't started. And he gave up 7 goals last night. I mean, even the cartoon version of him sucks. So, again, other than sitting there and hoping and praying that he plays better, there is nothing this team can do. They are stuck, and it's just like Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, it's, your playoff series thing, which we've argued about before, but he was in 2 playoff series. We can count Arizona if you want. They made
3.
the decision, the tough decision. Okay, that's the one where they should have won. They were not expected to win either of the other 2 playoff series that he appeared in, and he wasn't. He was actually amazing at times in the Carolina series. So that part of it doesn't. That UC Saros, great, feel great about him. I mean, even
I would like the 2021 Deshaun Watson too, but that guy doesn't exist.
Yeah, but again, we know that guy's done. He also had all the crap off the field, which you can't tell me isn't some kind of a factor in everything. And now his Achilles is tough. I mean, that's over. This is not over. I agree. It's hope. Yeah, that's what you're down to. You're down to hope. But also, when you signed him a year ago, it's the same thing. You're hoping that for several years that he's going to be the guy. You know that there's going to be pain at the end of this deal. Like, they can obviously buy him out a few years down the road and all that stuff. And, my guess right now would be that they will. But we don't have a final answer yet on Saros.
How bad is that, by the way? That a year ago, they committed the franchise to him. They traded away the other goalie. And you're like, yeah, they'll probably buy him out down the road. And not only that, I'm going to have to ask Trotz this next week. If he could do it, and you know what he's going to say. But if you could do it again, do you think you would have signed him to the deal?
No, and I don't.
So bad.
No one will ever admit that either,
of course,
so.
But that's so.
But hey, I'm here for you to ask it.
That's so bad. That is so bad that we all know that a year later, if you could do it over again, you do the opposite. Like, that's so bad when you make that kind of decision, and a year later you're like, yeah, crap, man, I wish I had made the exact opposite. Like, there are no annulments in the NHL. What a disaster. Frazier, what's next?
All right. Back to football with the Tennessee Titans, taking a little deeper dive into the offensive line. Titans signing left tackle Dan Moore Jr. this past offseason to an $82 million deal. Obviously, everybody knows that. Last year with the Steelers, he had a career high of 12 sacks allowed. Do you think Titans fans will see a better production of Dan Moore Jr. this season rather than last season with Pittsburgh? Go ahead, Jared.
Well, first of all, let's not forget about Bill Callahan. So Dan Moore averages over his career, which is 4 years, he averages 8.5 sacks allowed. Last year, he allowed 12. Again, I didn't watch him, so I can't tell you which ones are on Russell Wilson and which ones are on him. Broderick Jones, the right tackle, allowed 10 sacks, so I'm starting to think it's probably more Russell-ish. I think Dan Moore is a bottom third of the league starting left tackle. But that is still significantly better than what you have had on the offensive line for the last couple of years. Whether it was the 29 sacks allowed at left tackle in 2020, the 23 sacks allowed at left tackle in 2023, or the 29 sacks allowed at right tackle in 2024. I mean, the way I look at it is they've got a starting left tackle and they've got a starting right tackle, and I can live with that. I'm not saying they have a good starting left tackle. I'm not even sure they have a good starting right tackle. but they have a starting tackle, which is better than running Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT, out there for a 4th consecutive season. That is better than Jalen Duncan and Andre Dillard. So when you ask me, like, are the Titan fans going to be happy? I don't know. Probably not. But are they going to be happier than they were with the bums they had out there the last couple? Absolutely. I get the signing. I have no problem with it. And when he allows a sack, I'll remind you, hey, at least it's 1 and it's not 20 like it was with Dillard and that bozo crew. I'm fine with it.
For reference, J.C. Latham had 7 sacks allowed last season. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, look, I think it'll be an improvement. You hope it's more than just a marginal improvement. It's, as we've talked about, you're definitely improving the right tackle.
Well, isn't
position,
29 to
especially-
12, like even if he allows 12 sacks next year, which I don't think he will, again, he averages 8.5. If you go 29 to 12, isn't that a marginal improvement?
Yes. So you obviously hope that Latham you hope Latham gets better, but I guess you hope that Latham also embraces right tackle, and right tackle turns out, he should have been a right tackle, which is what, of course, they said a year ago. No, he's
because he's built like a right tackle.
No, Jared. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it'll be an improvement, but I am worried that this guy is, if you're a Titans fan who thinks all of a sudden you're going to get like the Taylor Lewan era, and this franchise has actually had some really good left tackles over a long period of time. They mostly had good left tackles for about 16, 17 years.
Well, you know who picked those left tackles, right?
Yes, I do. Okay. And you're not going back to that era. So it'll be somewhere in between, but better, yes. And, obviously you hope that Jared's guy, Fat Feet, Peter Skoronski, gets better too.
Well, here's the question I ask you. Again, we go back to the Saros thing. If you were in charge, you wouldn't have done it. And if you, a year later, could get rid of it, you would. If you were in charge of the Titans, would you have signed Dan Moore to that contract?
Oh.
Because you know what they did. They made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
The alternatives. Yeah, the lack of alternatives. Like, I'm not excited about it, but the lack of alternatives and the need to do other things in the draft would probably make me reluctantly say yes.
Okay. All right. I can get on board with that. I can get on board with that version of Joe Retro. Frazier, who wins this week?
Jared Stillman takes on top. Joe,
3 in a row.
There were a few comments that Jared made at the end of the UC Saros conversation there, and yeah, it has to go to him.
So whoa. So you agree that the UC Saros and Deshaun Watson contract that's an apt comparison?
Well, I don't think it's an apt comparison, but yet there was an opportunity where you could have said Deshaun Watson's off the field antics, but then you compare it back to UC Saros saying that maybe
I did say that.
I know, but I'm saying from a morale standpoint with UC Saros, like he's actually trying to help the team.
Okay.
3 in a row. 3 in a row. In fact, you can call me Don Jared.
Easy, Jared. Easy.
Good God.
What I'm doing, Joe? This disrespect. So happy. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the Predators and praying for better results, Barry Trotz, I think, let something slip yesterday that is going to piss a lot of you off. We'll get to that coming up next. Speaking of pissed off, I am a huge Atlanta Braves fan, and they need to start turning it around. And the good news is I expect them to turn that around by the time that they have the country road trip, which is coming to town and teaming up with the Nashville Predators and us at 102.5 The Game. Join us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge in Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, April 16th for a Braves watch party as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays at noon. There'll be free giveaways like hats and t-shirts, plus you could win autographed baseballs, free tickets, and more. Go to theGameNashville.com/events.
And the Blue Jackets fans standing and applauding their team got a much-needed win here tonight by a final of 8-4 over Nashville.
There you go. Again, losing is not bad at this point when it comes to the Predators. Like, again, you need as many ping pong balls as possible, and let's hope they get one of the 2 star centers that are supposedly coming out this year in the draft. Now, they're not McDavid. They're not those guys. But again, they need good, like, superstar young players, and that's the only way you get it. So I'm not upset about that. But there was one thing that I know the fans are going to hate. And I think quite personally, I'm going to hate this too. And it's the idea that Andrew Brunette could return as coach. Barry Trotz has been dropping hints about Andrew Brunette learning from last year and the way they play, mattering down the stretch. And he's been dropping hints, in my opinion, that he could bring Andrew Brunette back as coach. But yesterday, I thought he let it slip. When he was on the program, I asked him about all the constantly changing lines this season and how important that might be next year to stick with the lines and let them operate the way that they should be operating and so on and so forth. And here's what Barry Trotz said.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've talked to Bruno about. We're trying to dissect the first quarter, the second quarter, third quarter, that type of thing. There is some I'll say some credence to that. One of the things that sort of put us in a little bit of a blender early was the fact that we got off to such a poor start. We couldn't score. We went 0-5 at home. We didn't seem to have it together. And then, what happens is you're looking for that chemistry because you're starting the season 0-5 and you're digging yourself a hole and there's different pressures. And I think, looking back at that, you needed some consistency. You needed to stick maybe a little longer with.
Pause it right here. There's nothing wrong with anything he said, right? At this point in time, we're okay. Keep going.
You needed some consistency. You needed to stick maybe a little longer with something to pull it together. So you see, as the year goes on, there's pairs that always work, and then that third element of that line is the little bit of the wild card. And I think going into next season, Bruno has a real good situation where you see Alex Svechkov. Can he play right now? Unfortunately, we got so many injuries that can a guy like Svechkov, for instance, play second line for a whole year?
Okay, Frazier, go back to that part where again Barry Trotz says, and you go into next year and you can even hear. I think Barry thinks he knows. He let it slip. Play it again.
Bruno has a real good situation where
he's like, so Bruno or wait a minute, I shouldn't say Bruno but I'm not going to say Bruno or whoever, because if I say Bruno or whoever, they're going to go nuts on the radio about, oh my God, he said whoever. Like Barry, I think he let it slip. And I think Andrew Brunette's coming back as coach. And I think all the fans are going to hate it. And I'm not going to like it either. I like Andrew Brunette. I do. And I think Andrew Brunette's a good coach. But I just think something has to change. And I think it has to be the coach because you can't change the players. And that's just how this league works. So I think at the end of the year, they should fire Andrew Brunette and they should look at who's out there and they should hire probably a veteran coach. Mike Sullivan is a name that I saw somebody texted earlier today. I agree with. But I'm telling you, it sounds like Barry Trotz is dropping hints that he's bringing Andrew Brunette back. And even that one right there, again, it's like, I think he let it slip. So like I said, I think you all are going to hate it. Hate it. Hate it. But I think Andrew Brunette's coming back as coach. And I think they're going to say, oh, this was just a bad year and we'll move on to next year. And I mean, maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I just know the fans are not going to like it. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, as many of you know, I'm a big Atlanta Braves fan. And this year we're partnering up with the Braves. I'll be doing the show from Truist Park in Atlanta at some point. Chase will be doing the show. Chase and Big Joe will be down there. Very excited about the event that we're having that we talked about earlier this hour at BetMGM Sports Lounge with the Predators and Nash and the Braves and everything else. And they're 0-6. They haven't been bad since 2017. They've been to the playoffs every year since 2018. And they're 0-6. And they play the Dodgers tonight. And I'm not going to be able to stay up for it. But I actually thought about, with the Braves being partners and with the new FanDuel Sports Network and the way they're doing all that, I actually thought, could we work in a segment every week, 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, something like that, talking Braves baseball or something like that, just once a week, something. And I was like, no, I'm not going to commit to that because I just don't want to commit to something I don't have to commit to. And now they're 0-6. They're the only winless team in baseball. They cannot score. They play the Dodgers tonight. I'm not going to be able to stay up for it, but I'm betting they'll be 0-7. I feel like I'm reliving the hockey season all over again. 0-4 at the beginning of the year and just depression and pain.
No MLB franchise made it to the playoffs 0-7.
Has someone made it at 0-6?
Probably.
Well, in all fairness, Major League Baseball has made it a lot easier to make the playoffs over the last handful of years. But let's just pray that we can have a baseball season for those of us that love the Braves. I know there's not that many out there, but I just want a baseball season. I just want to turn on the TV at night and just watch baseball this summer. And I'm worried, just like hockey's been ruined this year with this terrible season, baseball's going to get ruined too. That's it for us. We are out of here. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.